What's going on, everyone? So today, as you can see by the title of the stream, we're going to be doing some D&D stuff today. As you can see up on the screen, familiar websites, and specifically, what I'm going to be working on today is really just finishing up, looking over the UA, collecting my thoughts on it. Whenever we last looked into this, I was checking out the new classes, the new feats that are going to be a part of the one D&D, or at least, what's being presented as part of that. But I never really actually had a good chance to dig in it on camera, at least, and take a look at what the rules glossary has, because as you might remember, there was a huge change in the rules glossary on the original UA, on the character origins one. The expert class UA introducing a lot more that goes in with that. So that's what we're going to be doing. And for those of you that are new to my stream, or anyone who might happen to be watching this on YouTube, I am going to be streaming to YouTube and Twitch simultaneously from now on. So I have the capacity to do that. I'm going to be giving it a shot. I do have the capabilities of having both chats up on the screen, so that is going to be, something that we'll be able to do. Hopefully some more folks join us here and there. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get jumping into this. And the first thing that we're going to look at here is the ability check. Now, a lot of changes have been made to the ability check, but also not really. It's more that what Wizards is doing with some of the name changes in here is that they are kind of giving a concrete idea behind different actions that a player can take to allow for the DM to really get a new handle on things. There's a lot of times whenever you're running a game, I know specifically I've dealt with moments like this where your players say they want to do something, and you have to sit there and consider to yourself, okay, what is going to be the what's going to be the skill with this? Is this going to be a skill check? Do I have to do a skill check? And in some cases it's a no, in some cases it's a yes. You never want to do a skill check on something that you can't foresee the players failing. That was kind of something that was talked about, I think, with this one. I believe it was, I thought it was in here in the D20 test, to be warranted. Yeah. So it has to be it has to be achievable. So as you can see here on the right, typical difficulty class, ranging from very easy to nearly impossible. 15 is about the average of a sizable task. I often set my DCs within that range, unless it's something that I foresee being a really easy task. I generally, I would never even consider a DC that was anywhere near 5, just because for the most cases, a passive score can, complete that, or with modifiers, it's oftentimes, above that. So I don't generally do anything like that, and I also don't do stuff that is lower than that for kind of the same reason. If you have something that is a 30, that is going to be nearly impossible. If you have something that's 25, that's going to be extremely difficult. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have stuff like that. It just means that as the DM, you have to be smart about your choices, how you're going to use ability checks. But let me turn down that music just a hair. There we go. So yeah, ability checks, the main things that were changed in this is things that they relate to, and that's kind of why it was added, because there's anything that has an underline on here is talked about in this rules glossary. So we're going to continue on through here. Action required. Yeah. This is a big thing. A lot of players don't actually realize it, but trying to do an ability check, especially in combat, requires an action. It's one of those things where you might have the moment where a player is attacking somebody and, you know, it's like, oh, you think your sword grazed off of them. You know, you swung true and you hit true, but you feel like they're not taking as much damage. Now that to a seasoned player might reassure them like, okay, whoever this is has resistance. This monster has resistance to my attacks. This monster has immunity to my attacks or something. But how that is played up, you know, they don't necessarily know. And some players might say, hey, can I roll to see if I know why that is? You know, they might want to roll an Arcana check or a Nature check or Survival. That all requires an action. And sometimes I allow it to slip. You know, if it's something that a player does often, if they can discern that or something like that, I might have them do it as a bonus action, or I might not give it to them until their next turn. But it just all depends. It really just depends on the specific situation. Difficulty class. Yep, that's not changed. So here's the first change. At least more in verbiage within here. So armor proficiency is now armor training. One of the things that was talked about in the videos that were put out by Wizards, armor training is a more appropriate term to use whenever you have a character that is able to use an armor, and they want to tie proficiency with anything that uses the proficiency bonus. You don't use a proficiency bonus with armor. It's just terminology. I think it's an all right thing. I think having armor training is fine for what they're wanting to do. I liked the idea of like, oh, weapon proficiency, tool proficiency, armor proficiency. You can use this weapon, you can use this tool, you can use this armor. It's not necessarily tied to your proficiency bonus, but I liked it before with proficiency, but whatever. It's all verbiage. But it works the same. If you don't have proficiency or if you don't have training, you get disadvantage on strength and dexterity. It's the same thing on here. You can't cast spells. You can't, get a bonus from the shield. So, it is what it is. Artisan tools, that actually stayed the same. They just changed the price. Okay, so here's something that's kind of big. Attacks. Now, equipping weapons and moving between your attacks is something that was brought up in the original player's handbook. Right here, breaking up your move. Let's zoom in on that a bit. There we go. So, breaking up your move, moving between attacks, and using different speeds and whatnot. Equipping weapons was actually never really a thing that was overtly discussed in most of this. A lot of this is just about having a weapon. I did look through this. I could not really find it. I think there's only one part in the player's handbook that even talks about it, and I think it might be listed under weapons, and it might just be I don't even know if it's in here, because it's just about stowing. Yeah, if I type stowing into a search feature, it doesn't find it. I did the same thing whenever I was looking this up. I viewed the entire player's handbook, went to search, typed in stow, and all that it looks for is bestow curse. So, I know that using donning and doffing armor, for example, there we go, getting in and out of armor, it takes time. Light armor takes a minute to get on and off. Medium armor takes 5 minutes to get on and a minute to get out. Heavy armor takes 10 minutes to get on, 5 minutes to doff, and a shield is a full action. You're just picking up a shield. So, it's one of those things where it doesn't actually address what that same thing is with weapons. So, in most cases, I have had it where it's an action if you want to swap weapons. It's your full action. You know, dropping a weapon requires no action, no bonus action. But having having the ability to stow a weapon and to draw a new one. Say you want to put away your longsword, pull out your dagger, or vice versa. Put away your longsword, pull out your bow. That's going to require an action. Now, in this new one, as a state, equipping weapons, you can equip or unequip one weapon before or after any attack you make as part of this action, even if the attack is made with an unarmed strike. So what that means is, if you are attacking with a longsword and you want to put it away, and let's say you're a monk, you're a Kensei monk, you have proficiency with a longsword, and you want to attack with that, but you want to get your flurry of blows, so you need to make some unarmed strikes, and you're going to put away your sword or something like that. Or you have two swords. Say you have two short swords or two daggers, and you want to make sure you stow one so you can do unarmed strikes. Well, that's what it's saying. You can do your attack with your blades, and then put that blade away, and then punch your unarmed strikes. So I like that they discussed this. I think this is this important thing to have in here, because again, I looked through it, I could not find it. But we'll see if it changes anything. So the nice thing, sorry, moving on with that, moving between attacks, this has always been the case. The combat rules have always stated that you can move in between attacks. So you can move, if you have 30 feet of movement, you can move 30 feet, attack, and then stay there. You can attack, move 30 feet, or you can move 15 feet, and then attack, and then move another 15, or, 10 feet, attack, 10 feet, attack, 10 feet. It doesn't matter. You've always been able to do this. Nothing changed there. The attack roll. Again, nothing changed. Just the name of the attack roll. It's one of the D20 tests. Same with ability check. Saving throw would be the other D20 test. Arcane spells. Yep. Bards, sorcerers, wizards, and warlocks. I personally don't like that they put the warlock as an arcane caster. I think it was in here. Probably wrong. No, it was, maybe it was in here. No, it might have been part of the spells, which was further down. No. Well, regardless, I'm personally not a huge fan of making the warlocks an arcane spell class. I don't think it actually fits them for what they are. Is it down here on this one? No. I personally believe that warlocks are divine casters. I think if they're anything, they're divine casters. They are getting an ability from a creature of otherworldly power. That's at least my opinion about it. I could be, a lot of people have different opinions of it. But I personally think that warlocks should have divine magic, because like clerics are drawing upon an otherworldly being. And by otherworldly being, I don't even mean like a god. A cleric could be a nature cleric, and, yes, they might worship Corellon, or, God, let's say, I don't know, Illustri. Somebody who is going to be, tied to, not Illustri. Who is the one that I can't think about? What is the one in the Sildarin? I'm gonna lose my mind if I don't look it up right here and now. Not Mialiki. I'm gonna lose my mind later. Alright, whatever. I can't find it. Not Sahanin either. Oh, well. Anyway, it is what it is. I can't think of the name right now. But nature gods, you know, it's there. A cleric could fall in line with that. They could, you know, go with this idea of a more generic, you know, presence. Paladins are also another thing that is like divine magic, but it's not coming from necessarily a god. It's coming from an oath. It's coming from an otherworldly source. You know, paladins don't have to worship a god. If a paladin takes an oath of, say, loyalty to the crown, then it might be the it might be the god of Evander, I think is the name. I'm losing my mind. I can't think of the entire Dawn War pantheon is eluding me right now, and I need to pull it up because I'm losing my mind. Which one is it? Moradin. No, Erathis. There we go. The god of invention, but he's also the god of... she's the god of civilization. So if you have a paladin who takes an oath of the crown, Erathis might be the god that aligns with them. That might be the god that is like, hey, these are my beliefs. These are the things that I believe in, and I want you to have access to these abilities. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. It could be anything out there that aligns with the oath you want. A vengeance god, Levistus, for example, you know, a betrayal god. You want to get vengeance because something happened. You know, Levistus might give you that power. Or it could just be a force out there. Kind of like warlocks. I don't know. Different strokes for different folks. I guess this is how WotC sees it. And it is what it is. You know, we'll live. The only thing I can really say is wizards, warlocks, and sorcerers often do have access to most of the same spells, whereas paladins and clerics do generally have the same spells on their list. So I can understand if they want to maintain that and not really diverge too far from there, making warlocks more, you know, paladin cleric classes. That's fine. You know, it's not my call to make. All right. So up next, Barkskin. Barkskin got a huge buff, in my opinion. So the original Barkskin was when you touch a creature, you give them an AC of no less than 16, regardless of whatever armor they're wearing. Now, if we compare that to something like mage armor, mage armor is that a creature's AC can't be any less than 13 plus its dexterity modifier. So if you have a creature, and dexterity is a fairly common skill to have up there. It's your, you know, it's your dexterity saving throws are important for most classes to make, except for paladins, really, or heavy clerics. But dexterity is one of the higher skills for most characters. So in a lot of cases, you're going to have, with mage armor, the ability to give somebody an AC of around 15 or 16 for 8 hours. It doesn't require concentration, and it's also a very low-level spell. In fact, this is why most sorcerers get it as one of their ability, or sorry, not sorcerers, warlocks get it as one of their invocations. There's the Armor of Shadows, which allows them to cast mage armor once a day without using a spell slot. They can cast it at will. Not even once a day, but it's just at will. Which is great, because it means they don't have to load up a spot for mage armor. They don't have to worry about that. And they also don't have to worry about armor that they're wearing. So, Barkskin, on the other hand, it was just 16, that's it. But in a lot of cases, at least for druids and rangers, if you wear studded leather armor, which studded leather is going to give you, let's pull it up in here, adventuring gear. Studded leather is going to give you 12 plus your dexterity modifier. Now you just need simply a 16, or sorry, you need an 18 or a 19 to get a +4 to dexterity. Now, in most cases, a druid or a ranger is going to have a fairly high dexterity. So this is already going to be what you're probably wearing, is studded leather. It's very cheap. It's reasonably light. It gives you the best light armor AC. And because of that, Barkskin never really benefited you. The new one, on the other hand, is great, in my opinion. A bonus action to cast, so much better already than a full action. Concentration up to an hour, which is the same thing as the old one. But now, instead of getting a 16 AC, you now have temporary hit points equal to the spellcasting ability modifier plus your proficiency bonus. So being that this is a second level spell, Rangers are going to get second level spells when they're 5th level. Druids would already have had them by 3rd. But if we look at it at least 15th level, where both classes that naturally get it would have access to it, you're probably going to have a +5 to that wisdom score at that point. Wisdom being the main score for rangers and for druids, alongside dexterity or strength if you're playing a strength-based druid. But the nice thing about this is that you're going to have that +4 or 5, and you're also going to have a +3 to your proficiency. So you're getting 7 or 8 points, temporary hit points, every turn, at the start of every turn. So you're just constantly re-upping yourself with this new Barkskin. And I kind of love the idea of a ranger or a druid out there using this on themselves and being this, like, master of the woods, this, mobility expert, somebody who is quickly maneuvering around the forest. You get into a combat scenario, you already have your leather armor, but you walk up to a tree or something like that, and you place your hand on it. And when you do, the idea of, like, seeing the bark slowly extend out across your arms, up your shoulders, and across your body to give you this plating, and then having it be something where, as you're taking hits, as somebody is coming up and stabbing at you, or somebody is shooting you with an arrow or slicing you with a sword, it's breaking off, it's shattering, and it's exploding everywhere. And then your natural force is just bringing it back, and it just, breathes back into you. I really like this idea. I think it's a cool concept. I'm looking forward to seeing it utilized in different games, because I think it's just a very powerful ability, and the fact that you can also upcast. I also think that's a really good change to it, especially the fact that you can upcast. All right, so on to Blindsight. Blindsight has basically not changed. The only thing that they have really done is they have adjusted how the where is the page that I'm looking for? Here we go. Conditions. They've changed just how it's worded. The idea behind Blindsight originally, well, yeah, upcasting is great. The ability behind Blindsight was that you can perceive your surroundings without relying on sight within whatever radius is, and that was it. That's all the information that Blindsight ever gave. Now, the problem with that is when you have a situation where you're in combat, and I think we have to go into invisible, we need pull this up. Unseen. No. The hide action. That's what we need to pull up. Here we go. So, unseen attackers and targets. This is how it is handled in 5e. If a creature is invisible, when you attack them, you have disadvantage. This is true whether you're guessing where they are or you can hear them or not. So if the target's just not in that area, you automatically miss. And when a creature can't see you, you have advantage. So this is all it really ever gave. Now, the hide action was just specifically, this is the action you can use, and you make a stealth check against other creatures' perceptions, and if they can't see you, you are unseen from them. It was always very iffy. I know for a fact, at least in one of the games that I played, this came up as a very contentious point. So they're going to address it in here, and we're going to get to that, but I like the fact that now they give a stronger idea of Blindsight and what it specifically is. So moving on, climb speed basically stayed the same thing. If you have a climb speed, you can move that direction along vertical surfaces without expending extra movement. Normally that's a climb. It's difficult terrain. Sometimes there's checks that have to be made, like strength. So that stayed the same. Creature types have always been always stayed the same. Cure wounds, stuff that certain things work on certain things. That's, again, really nothing that changed. D20 test, that's just the new name for checks, checks, saves, and attacks. Dash action save. So here's up to our next one. Where did I have it in here? Here we go. Combat. Difficult terrain. So difficult terrain is something that is often discussed within modules, and it's something that DMs have to take into consideration. So on the left here, you can see, it's still the same thing as it is always. Every foot of movement costs an extra foot of movement, and it gives a few examples of it. Boulder-strewn caverns, briar-choked forest, treacherous staircase, low furniture, rubble, undergrowth, steep stairs, snow. You get the idea. I actually like now how they expand upon those ideas, the different things that can drive difficult terrain. When a space becomes difficult terrain if the space contains X, Y, and Z. So creatures that aren't tiny, furniture that's small or larger, heavy snow, heavy undergrowth, ice, liquid that is shin to waist deep, basically anything that you're not swimming in, narrow openings, pits, rubble, or what came up in my most recent game of the Paladin 5, a slope of 20 degrees or more. Now, on the map that we had, they had a situation where the players were going to go up a hill. They were sieging a hill. Well, that hill had these slopes along the way. And I had in my mind that these slopes were fairly steep, that they were, maybe like a 80 degree, 70 degree angle. And that led me to say, okay, moving up them is difficult terrain, and moving down them is difficult terrain, because you kind of have to slow yourself up a bit. And I'm just kind of glad that this is now something that is more discussed in here. Things that have a little bit more structure to them, and a little bit more, here is what the thing is. I like that that's what D&D is doing. I like that that's what Wizards is doing with this stuff, where they're giving more examples. And we're going to get into that with some of the stuff that comes up here. So up next, Divine Spells. We already talked about that. Clerics and Paladins, these are their spells. The Exhausted condition, this hasn't really changed. This has. I was thinking of something else. Sorry. The Exhausted condition has changed greatly, in fact. So, in the past, Exhaustion was something that was extremely dangerous. You only had the 6 layers, so as you can see right here, you get disadvantage on ability checks for the first level. Your speed is halved at second. Third is that you have disadvantage on attack rolls and saves. Fourth is that you have your hit point maximum halved. And 5 is that your speed is reduced to 0. And if you reach 6th level of exhaustion, you die. Now, certain things can give you exhaustion. Forced march, for example, where after 8 hours of travel in an adventuring day, you now have to start rolling exhaustion or constitution checks and saving throws, constitution saving throws, to not become exhausted. So this means if you and your companions wake up at, say, 6 o'clock in the morning, and you have to travel 6 hours to reach this camp, or to reach this dungeon, and you go in there and you're exploring around, and let's say you're in there for maybe an hour at most, or maybe a half an hour, going through this dungeon, trying to explore it, killing the monster, stealing the treasure. You have traveled already 6 hours in your day. And if we even negate the amount of travel through the dungeon, if you travel without any kind of rest, if you try and travel back to where you came from, you're going to face those forced march rules. So even if you left at 6 in the morning, you arrive at this place at noon, and you're there until, say, 1 o'clock in game. And you're like, we have the rest of the day ahead of us. Let's march back to the town. After 2 hours into that march, you're technically starting to make forced march saves. You're now starting to face the risk of having exhaustion. And this is a major thing, and this is a thing that a lot of DMs don't do. I know I don't do it all the time, but there are times whenever it is a necessary thing, where you might have a player that is, say, a ranger or a rogue or somebody who wants to go out and, like, do these side things. Maybe they're a rogue that wants to go out bounty hunting on the side, or they're a ranger that wants to go hunting, or they're a barbarian that wants to go, do these various things. You have to start considering exhaustion into that. And one of the upsides to the new system is that it's not just 6 levels with these odd construed penalties. It is now, your exhaustion ranges from 1 to 10, and you just get a negative of that exhaustion level to all D20 tests. You force march yourself for 3 hours and you fail each one. You have 3 levels of exhaustion. Suddenly an owlbear comes trampling out of the forest, chasing after a deer, and it sees all of you standing there as it mauls the deer and turns to you, and you realize you hear a chirping coming from behind you, and you see the owlbear's baby behind you, and this thing is charging at you. Roll initiative. You're now going to take a -3 to everything you do. -3 to initiative. -3 to your attack rolls. -3 to your saves to not be frightened. -3 to everything. And I think this is a great thing that they did, because it really can stack up, but it's not a confusing system like the old exhaustion one. Having your speed halved, that sucks. And then having to remember at the same time, you're 3 levels into exhaustion. Well, I have disadvantage on everything I'm doing, and my speed is halved. And, it's like, you should have made that saving throw with disadvantage, or you should have made that attack with disadvantage, and you forget about that. And I'm not saying that everybody's going to remember, you have a -3 to this roll or that roll, but I like how they did the new exhaustion. I think it's smart how they did it. And then finishing a long rest removes one of those levels of exhaustion. And now with that new ranger buff, where you can remove exhaustion on a short rest, it now shows how that ability for the ranger is actually not as overpowered as one might seem. I know there's a lot of talk on the Reddits and the different communities of people saying, like, a ranger can just remove exhaustion at first, with a short rest in an hour. That's broken. You're going to want a ranger on every mission that, now has exploration, or anything where you're traveling long distances, or, if you're playing Rime of the Frost Maiden, the rangers are going to be the most overpowered character because you're not making constitution saves as much anymore. And it's like, well, no, with this new one, it's not as drastic. I like it. I like the new one. Yeah, it is more realistic. It is a more realistic change. Like I said, I like the new exhaustion. So All right, moving on to there. From there, expertise stayed the same. You double your proficiency if you have expertise in something. Fly speed stayed the same. Gaming tool set is just the cost of it now is still the same. I double checked. Nothing changed with grappled. We already talked about that the last time that a UA came out. I think the only thing that they changed was capitalizing attack rolls, because now they're there we go. They're kind of specific on that stuff. Also highlighting, the new incapacitation, and the highlighting incapacitation and the slowed condition. I think that was a big thing that they wanted to start doing, is they're underlining all the stuff that is in this rules glossary so you can reference it easier. All right, so on to a spell that I personally have hated for a long time and how they have fixed it. So in the past, the guidance spell, which is a cantrip, as you can see, it's on here, divine and primordial or primal. That means that druids, rangers, clerics, and paladins are going to have access to this. And on here, guidance was clerics, druids, and artificers. Now, artificers are, if I'm not mistaken, still considered an arcane caster, but we haven't seen that added, so we'll have to see when that time comes. But it's also available to, different kinds of clerics and druids, but also to different kinds of bards and sorcerers. But again, even the sorcerer is the divine soul sorcerer. So guidance is more of a religious, holy thing. But the original one was as an action, and for a minute with concentration, a willing creature gets a plus D4 that it can add to any ability check that it makes. It can roll this before or after making the check, and then the spell ends. This was so broken at so many tables, because it meant that as long as you had a cleric or druid at your table, or an artificer, you always would just give your characters that ability. A touch spell can be cast upon the person casting it, because you can make yourself that willing participant. And it was always considered to be this really broken mechanic where it's like, okay, just assume if you have a cleric or a druid in the party with guidance, just assume everyone's always going to roll their D20 with that extra D4. That was just the case. And it kind of stung as a DM. You want to make things challenging, and it's like there's always this D4 thrown in there. And it's a cantrip, which means they can just use it and use it and use it. The new one on the right here is a reaction that you make in response to you or an ally within 30 feet failing an ability check. So it's no longer concentration. It's no longer lasting a minute. It's a reaction, which means that on your turn in combat, you can only get it once on a turn. And this is made when somebody fails a check. You can give them a D4 and they can add it, potentially turning it into a success. And once a creature rolls the die for this, they cannot benefit from the spell until they finish a long rest. So even if you took this out, it would still be just as abusive outside of combat, where your players are trying to scale a wall to get into a compound that's, taken over by some overlord. And you're trying to climb, and everyone's making athletic checks to get up there because no one has a climb speed. Well, okay, the barbarian climbs it just fine, but then the wizard tries to climb it. They don't have fly, but you have guidance. So you just, they failed, you give them a D4. Okay, they failed again, give them a D4. Have them re-roll it, but give them that D4. I like that it's now once per long rest. It was just too abusive before. If you had multiple clerics too, if you had a cleric and a druid, it was just even worse. And that's actually why in one of my my house rules, I made a very specific rule in there explaining that you could not benefit from guidance twice. That was something that I had because I had players try something like that once before, and I just was not going to have it. It was not something I was going to allow to continue rolling because it's frustrating. You know, like I said, as a DM, as a player, you know, as a DM, it's just frustrating. As a player, yeah, you want to get those bonuses, but again, it just kind of wipes out challenge. Okay, help action. So the help action has changed. And the way that it has changed is that in the past, you could use your action on your turn to help another creature. And the way that you did this was that you would give them advantage on the next ability check that they make to perform the task that you're helping with. The other one in combat is that you can distract a target or somebody and give that person advantage. Now, the assist attack roll stayed the same. You momentarily distract an enemy within 5 feet of you, granting advantage on the next attack. Now, this is actually one of the reasons why people take companions. Find familiar, an owl companion with flyby. You have the owl fly in. You have them distract them, giving you the help action because they get within 5 feet. They fly away. They have flyby, so they don't get an opportunity attack. And you, as a rogue, then shoot them with a crossbow or throw a dagger at them. You now get sneak damage because you have advantage on this attack. That's how a lot of people use the help action. Outside of combat, though, it was used when, say, the wizard needs help over that wall, and the paladin is going to try and help them, or the bard is going to try and help them. Well, what they made it now is that you can give advantage to the next ability check that your ally makes as long as you have the proficiency with it. Where it says specifically, choose one of your skill proficiencies and one ally that can see or hear you. So you now have to be proficient with it. And this is a house rule that, again, I have had in my games where if you want to use if you want to give somebody the help action, you need to be proficient. In fact, I think I can pull it up over here. Yeah. Here is my house rules. And as you can see right down here, help. You can only use the help action to assist with an ability check if you're proficient with that skill. So that right there. I believe I've had that one in my rule set for a while. I mean, I have other house rules that I personally use, but I think them changing this to being something you have to be proficient in is better. Just across the board, I think it functions better. I think by having that, it makes more sense. How am I going to help you with a medicine check if I have a -1 to wisdom and I'm not proficient with medicine? How am I going to help you? Am I going to sit there or you're trying to, tinker with something? How am I going to help you with that? Am I going to hold the flashlight? Am I going to hold the tray? It's not helping. I like that they have made that change. All right. Heroic Inspiration. This is the opposite of the inspiration system that Wizards released the last time. So, Inspiration, you gain it when you roll a d20, or you roll a 20 on a d20 test. You get a nat 20. This one, you roll a 1. Heroic Inspiration. And it works the same way. The difference is that when you have Heroic Inspiration, also called Inspiration, you can expend it to give yourself advantage on a check. The same thing over here. You gain it when you roll a 1, and this is, meant to show that you're learning from your mistake, and the DM can also award it out. You can only ever have 1, same as before, or you can give it to someone if you already have it. This does not include losing it at the end of a long rest. You can maintain that. I don't know how I feel about that. I personally like the idea of your character losing inspiration at the end of a long rest. I think when your character rests and recuperates and refreshes, that inspiration that you had from that grand success or that horrific failure, I think whenever you start the next day, it should be something that you have to get back. A mechanical reason why I believe this is because allowing you to constantly hold it brings back the whole issue of, the legendary weapon in a video game, or the health potion in a video game. You're going to hold on to that till the end of the game after you beat the big boss, because you might need it just around the corner. There's one rocket launcher in the game. You're never going to use it because you think you're going to need it in the next thing. Because when you use it, it's gone. And I think that's the problem with not having it as a limited time resource. When your players have it, it incentivizes them to use it or lose it. In fact, this happened at my library game that I ran just this past weekend, where I had my players, they went through their encounter. A couple of them got inspiration, they used them in combat, but one of them didn't, and it was the end of the day, and the one character was painting a mural on a wall with some goblins, and she wanted to roll a performance check to see I had her roll a performance check to see how good it was. And she rolled fairly low, and she said, well, I have inspiration. It's like, okay, yeah, use it. You guys are going to long rest. You might as well use it. If I didn't have that lose the inspiration already set in, that player might not have re-rolled it. That player might have allowed that lousy roll to just run, because they might be thinking, well, tomorrow we're going to be going over here. And when we go over here, we're possibly going to be fighting something, or I might need it, so I'm going to hold on to it. So I like the idea of losing inspiration. Do I like the idea of the heroic inspiration being from a nat 1? I don't mind that. That's actually how I rolled it before. If you rolled a nat 1, you got inspiration. So I can't say that I'm going to change how I do it in some of my games. I think this is a good option. I also think this is a good option. I think they both work. I don't necessarily know if I would employ both, that you can gain inspiration from rolling nat 20s and nat 1s. But because I think that adds a little too much option, a 10% chance rather than a 5% chance. Now, the thing I will say is I like that it's called heroic inspiration, not just inspiration, because I feel like this, especially if you have a bard in your group, can get a bit confusing. But that's, situational. Okay, so here we go. Something that I'm extremely happy about, something that I already touched on a little bit, but hide action and the hidden condition. So I'm going to touch on hide action first and then touch on hidden. Now, the hide action has changed its verbiage, also changed how it works. Now, when you take the hide action, so in the past, when you take it, you make a stealth check following the rules in Chapter 7 on hiding. So let's take a look. And that is, the DM decides when circumstances are appropriate for hiding. When you try to hide, make a stealth check. Until discovered, or you stop hiding, that check is contested with the perception check of any creature actively searching for you, or their passive perception. That's why passive skills exist. You can't hide from a creature that can clearly see you, and you give away your position if you make noise, such as shouting, waving, or knocking something over. An invisible creature can always try to hide. Signs of passage might be shown. Yeah, here we go. Passive perception. So, with that in mind, you make a stealth check. If you exceed the passive perception of all creatures, or the active perception of your creatures, you're hiding. So if you are hiding, you gain the ability, or you gain the benefits as described in unseen attackers. This is that part where it's creatures have disadvantage to hit you, and you have advantage to hit them. Well, this changed it because now you make a DC 15 stealth check. while you're heavily obscured, have 3/4 cover or total cover, and you must be out of the visible sight of any enemy. And if you see a creature, you can discern whether or not they can see you. So, this now means that if you are lightly obscured, this does not, unless you have a specific ability, like Gloomstalker Rangers have an ability that allows them to hide like that, and Shadow Monks have an ability that allows them to hide like that. In lightly obscured, you're not hiding. You have to be heavily obscured or behind total cover and be out of their line of sight. On a successful check, you're hidden. So make note of the check, which becomes the DC for creatures with perception. So again, that still is the contest, but you have to make that DC 15 to be hidden. Now, when you are hidden, this becomes a new condition. So you can see, hidden was never a condition before. You aren't affected by any effect that requires its target to be seen. If you're hidden when you roll initiative, you have advantage. Attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and you have advantage. And it ends if you make a sound louder than a whisper, an enemy finds you, you make an attack roll, you cast a spell with a verbal component, or you aren't heavily obscured or behind any cover. This is a massive change, because in most cases, an attack roll, if you did not hit with an attack roll, it did not take that away. I don't actually think it was listed in here, but it has always been, at least from my perspective, when you make an attack, you give away your position. Okay, no, I'm sorry, there it is. So there are certain ones, Gloomstalker Rangers have the ability to not have their position given away, but again, I'm glad that the hidden condition was created. I'm glad that it's now a condition to be hidden. It's not like, oh, I was hiding, how does that, work? And then you go into here and you have to figure it out every time. It's just like if you were restrained. You're restrained, here's the 3 effects. You're hidden, here's the 4 effects. I like that. All right, moving on. Incapacitated, that don't believe has changed since last time. Nope, nothing in there is any different. Okay, so here's a new thing. Actions in combat. Influence. This is different. Basically, this is now when your players want to persuade somebody or they want to deceive somebody. This is the influence action. This is now a thing, like I said before, when you have a player who says, I want to do this thing, you kind of have to sit there and think to yourself, what are your skills going to be that tie into this? Well, this is now the influence action. With the influence action, it's essentially exactly what you think about it. It's a charisma check. And the attitude part is going to be how the enemies perceive or how the targets perceive your character. Are they indifferent? Are they friendly? Are they hostile? When you use this, roleplay what happens, roleplay what you do, and from there, you make an ability check. So, like it says, animal handling, deception, intimidation, persuasion. And then it gives really good DCs. An indifferent creature's response. If you roll a 10, the creature does his ass, and as long as no risks or sacrifice are involved. If the DC is 20, it accepts a minor risk or sacrifice. If they're hostile, they offer no help, but also does no harm. And if it's a 20, the creature does his ass as long as no risk. So, there's, this good balance between these of trying to influence somebody. Can be used only... Yes, so that's a big thing. This can only be used on creatures that the DM controls. I don't even think this had to be said, but I have had moments in my games. It's one of the reasons why I just outright don't allow PvP. I don't allow players to roll a persuasion check against one another or roll a deception check. I don't like that because I think, in my opinion, it takes away just the... It makes it so you whenever you're going against a player, you are now creating this conflicting moment in the game. And you can have, meta knowledge that plays into that. Obviously, a player is going to know what the truth in most cases are. I think the fact that they put this in there is good, just so that a DM could flip around a book or to copy and paste this into somebody, into a chat and say, look, you can't make a deception check against, Ralph. Sorry, Ralph knows, or, Ralph's going to use his own intuition. And you have to play that up in game, but I like that. I like that this is now a thing. They're coming into different actions that you can do. I like that this is now a thing because it makes it so much more, so much more accessible to especially newer DMs who might not know how to handle a situation like that. Okay. Invisible condition. I think that's pretty much the same thing. And yeah, unseeable. You can't be seen. You aren't affected by stuff. If you're invisible when you roll initiative, I think this is the only thing that changed. Is you get advantage on initiative rolls. So, because everything else has pretty much stayed the same, but the surprise idea, I think that's cool. I think that idea is interesting. So, the jump action, this moved from being a movement thing to being an action. So, before... Here it is. Or no, actually, you know what we'd probably have to do? There. Quick reference. Jumping. Here we go. So, high jump and long jump. Basically, it's with the long jump, you have to move, at least 10 feet. Then you can jump a number of feet equal to your strength score, I believe. Let me see. Here it is. Yeah. So your strength score in feet if you move at least 10 feet. Now, the thing is that this came up with a bunch of contentious points in the past of, if I have 30 feet of movement and there is a gorge 20 feet in front of me, if I run 20 feet and then jump and try and clear this, this, say, 30-foot gorge... and I have, or let's say I have a 20 in strength. Sorry. Let's say I have a 20 in strength. It's a 20-foot gorge, and I have moved 20 feet. I have 10 feet of movement left, but I roll a successful check. Does that mean that I get to jump my full 20 feet? No, it actually doesn't. It doesn't mean that you get to move your 20 feet. You still only have 10 feet of movement. With the new jump action, you attempt to leap more than 5 feet. When you take this action, your speed must be greater than 0. You make a DC 10 strength check, athletics or acrobatics. If you don't move at least 10 feet, you have disadvantage on this, which I kind of like this. It's no longer half the distance or anything like that. On a failed check, you leap 5 feet, and that's it. On a success, the check's total determines the distance in feet that you can clear horizontally, or half the total if you're jumping vertically. This does not expend your movement, but the distance can't exceed your speed, and there is the verbiage. So, you have to get at least 10 feet when you do this jump. So if you have, say, a plus 10 to athletics, and you roll a 15, you can jump 25 feet, but you have to move at least 10 feet, otherwise you're going to face disadvantage. And even if you can negate that somehow, again, you can only move 5 feet if you have 30 feet of movement to jump 25 feet. It cannot exceed your speed. So I like this. I like that they have actually put this in there. It's not something that you can jump 60 feet. And this also ties in with stuff like specifically the jump spell, where your jump distance is tripled. Your jump distance might be tripled. If you roll a 15 on your ability check to jump, on your action, and you get a 45-foot jump speed, that doesn't mean that you can jump 45 feet if you only have 30 feet of movement. You can still only jump 30 feet. So I like this. I like that they put it in some new phrasing. I like that it has a little bit more of a concrete idea behind it that's not like this thing or that thing. It's just, you know, here's the DC. If you beat it, you jump this far. If you don't move at least 10 feet, you have disadvantage. I like that. Okay, light weapons. This has changed the face of the game. So, let's look at the previous light weapons. A light weapon is small, easy to handle. This is a reaction to... No, this isn't a reaction to Hadazi because the Hadazi was already changed. The Hadazi was changed, you know, already. This is a reaction to people having confusion over if you have a 20 in strength, that's a 20-foot jump distance based off of the, you know, based off of the old rules. Sorry, where was it? Here it is. You can cover a number of feet up to your strength score if you move at least 10 feet. So if you run 10 feet and you have a strength score of 20, you could jump 20 feet. If you cast jump on this person, their jump distance is tripled. People thought that that meant that your jump distance was now 3 times your strength score, which meant that you could run 10 feet and jump 60 feet. And that's just not the case. I think that having this verbiage change and moving away from high jump, you know, long jump, and just having it be, these are the things, this is your DC, this is how far you can jump, either vertically or horizontally, and that's it. You know, I think, like I said, it's more having to do with confusion about rule sets. Again, the Hadazi were already handled. They already had their stuff reduced. You know, it's like they can't just constantly glide. They don't have an infinite use of it. It's something where it can't exceed their movement cost now. Hadazi, you know, was broken in the beginning, but was changed, but was eventually changed. All right, so back to the light weapons. Now, 2-weapon fighting. Let me see where I did have that. I did have that pulled up somewhere. Yep, we're just going to pull it up in here. Nope, not there. Here we go. 2-weapon fighting. Okay, so when you take the attack action and attack with a light melee weapon that you're holding in one hand, you can use a bonus action to attack with a different light melee weapon in the other hand. You don't add your ability modifiers to the damage unless it's a negative. So that's it. So that's the light property. Now the light property, as you can see on this list, extends to a fair number of items. Club, dagger, hand axe, light hammer, sickle, and scimitar, short sword, and I thought... No, light crossbow doesn't. It's just called the light crossbow. But now it is that when you take the attack action, you get to make an extra attack as part of the same action. It's not a bonus action anymore, which I think is kind of crazy. I think that's nuts that was adjusted. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's incredibly powerful now. Because that means that if you have and granted, you only get one of these per turn, so totally understandable. But if you have a fighter who's going to get extra attack at 5th level, at 5th level, you now have 3 attacks. Starting at 1st level, you have 2 daggers. You have 2 full attacks. You grab, say, 2 rapiers. Let's say you're playing a bard. You get 2 rapiers, and, you know, now you're dishing out 2d8 damage without having to even burn a bonus action. This change is insanely powerful, and I foresee there being crazy dual weapon builds with this. For example, with the new Ranger stuff, having a Ranger now with everything that it can do, with the 2-weapon fighting, being able to get those positive modifiers to stuff, the extra attack, all the extra movement, the ability to become invisible and get advantage on attacks, dealing extra damage with Hunter's Mark. If you have 2 short swords at first level with Hunter's Mark, when you attack someone, you are going to be dishing out 4d6 points of damage, considering Hunter's Mark is 1d6 every time you use it. So that is insanely powerful. It's completely, blowing it out of the water, but I don't hate it because I think it's a crazy powerful. I think it's a crazy bonus. And I like that. I like whenever things get where you have more ability to do stuff, because as a DM, that allows me to give my monsters 2 short swords. It lets me give my assassins, 2 daggers of venom, and to go up and get these, extra attacks without burning any spell, without burning their bonus actions. I can now have it listed in there, like, whenever these monsters make their attacks, if before they didn't get multi-attack, now they can have multi-attack if they're just dual wielding. And I like that. I like that idea. Okay, so on to the next part. We're going to be looking at long rests. So long rests have changed a lot over the years, especially with elves and stuff. But one of the big changes, and really one of the main changes that they have done, has to do actually with the hit die. But just as a reminder, long rest is 8 hours where you sleep for at least 6 and perform no more than 2 hours of light activity. If a long rest is interrupted by at least 1 hour of walking, casting spells, or other similar activities, it confers no benefit and must be restarted. If the rest was at least 1 hour before the interruption, you gain at least the effects of a short rest, which that's understandable. And this is still the same thing. You must have at least 1 hit point to gain the benefit, so you can't be at 0 when you start it. Also, you can only benefit from 1 long rest every 24 hours. So that really hasn't changed. What has changed, though, the characters also regain hit points up to a number of dice equal to half of the character's total number of them. This meant if you were out there adventuring for, say, a day, you short rested 3 or 4 times, you used all of your hit die. When you long rest, you get a number of them equal to half of your total. Let's say you're a level 8 character, you're only getting 4 hit die back. I personally have never known a DM to roll with that. I actually don't even know if D&D Beyond does that. But anyway, it has changed now. It is now just you regain all spent hit die. There we go. Coolio. Another thing that has changed is that your hit point maximum is returned if it was reduced. I don't believe that was in the last one. No, it wasn't. So now if you have something that reduces your hit point maximum, a long rest will return it to normal. Now, this does mean that something like, say, the disease from a rat, like, Syphilia, that reduces your hit point maximum by a certain amount per day, that is going to be taken out. And I think that's something that DM's going to have to say, hey, this is a thing that is persistent, and until you get this cured, it's still going to do it. Because I think that's still something that needs to be at the DM's discretion. All right. Up next, the magic action. It's basically the same thing as cast a spell Action, it's pretty much the exact same thing. Move, nothing has really changed here. Again, like we saw before, it was, you can break up your move. It's same thing, moving around other creatures. You climbing speeds, special speeds, all this. This is all basic stuff. Nothing really has changed here. Musical instrument, these are just changing in price. Primal spells, rangers and druids, again, what we expect. Ritual casting, if you have a spell prepared that has a ritual tag, you can cast the spell as a ritual. This is one of those things where most players did not realize that this isn't how it was supposed to work. And I personally don't know if I ever played with these rules in the right sense. Now, in here, we should find rituals. Certain spells have a special tag, ritual. Such a spell can be cast following the normal rules for spellcasting, or the spell can be cast as a ritual. The ritual version of a spell takes 10 minutes longer to cast than normal. It also doesn't expend a spell slot, which means the ritual version can't be cast at higher levels. To cast a spell as a ritual, a spellcaster must have a feature that grants the ability to do so. The cleric and druid, for example, have such a feature. The caster must also have the spell prepared on his or her list, unless the character's ritual feature specifies otherwise, as the wizard does. So, let's go ahead and look at some... Where are they at? Classes. Now, the cleric said that it has the ability to cast... There it is. You can cast a cleric spell as a ritual if the spell has the ritual tag and you have that spell prepared. Cool. Druids, ritual casting. Wizard, ritual casting. You don't need to have the spell prepared. It just needs to be in your spell book. Sorcerers do not have ritual casting. This is the thing that has changed. This does not limit you now on ritual casting. As I said before, this is something that most players and myself never even used. But that is the limitation. That was the old limitation. You had to have the special ritual casting, or you had to have the ritual caster feat. That ability allowed you to do it. So it's one of those things that is often looked over because it's dug into this spellcasting stuff. But that's why now, as long as you have a spell prepared that has the ritual tag, you can cast it as a ritual. That is the big change. Okay. Alright, short swords are now simple. As you can see here, they used to be martial. They're now simple. I don't think that's ever even come into my question. I honestly, for the life of me, always thought they were simple weapons. But apparently, that was wrong. Slowed condition, that hasn't changed since they changed it the last time. It's still basically the same thing. They just highlighted the attack roll. So I know I jumped over one, and I did that for a reason. Search and study. I talked about this in my last episode of chilling with, some lo-fi and doing D&D things. But I love this. I love the idea of separating wisdom skills, which is your search, and intelligence skills, which is your study. I like that search is now trying to figure out what's on somebody's mind, trying to figure out what is ailing them, trying to figure out what is around you, and trying to figure out what is going in an area. Tracking stuff, or is this food good for me? Whereas study is that you are studying something, okay, versus searching for something. Study is where, you're You're told to go and reclaim this book for some noble. Maybe it's a book of targets. Maybe it's a book of, jobs that they've done or property deeds. So you search for it in the room that you're in. You find a chest. You investigate that chest. That's your study. You're now studying it. You see that this chest is locked with, some kind of, it's locked with, some kind of magical lock. Okay, cool. You figure out how to open it. Well, now you find a book, and now you need to study it. Is this the right book? Well, those are how you do it now. There's study and there's search, and I like the disconnect between the two of them. Yeah, the tables are helpful. I think this is, one of those things where, like with the PHB, they need to put out stuff that is going to make it approachable for other DMs. They need to have a way to have it where a new DM can sit down and say, hey, these are examples of what I need. And I'm not saying that they didn't exist in the others. I'm sure they're somewhere. I'm sure there's somewhere in the PHB or the DM's guide about them. But having them written down like that, having those little tabs and those tables is good. Let's just look. Hold on. Okay. And no, nothing in the DM's guide about it. Let's look at the PHB. Arcana. There we go. Just some basic skills. Arcana, intelligence check. So again, kind of what it says. Spells, magic items, eldritch symbols. Recall, lore about spells, magic items, eldritch symbols. Okay, so it's a lot of the same things. But again, I think having it listed under this study action is a lot cleaner. It makes a lot more sense. And as you can see, these are pretty much exactly the same way. But I think it's so much more elegant this way now. Swim speed stayed the same. Tool proficiency is still the same thing. If you make a check with a tool you're proficient with, you get to add your proficiency bonus. Teleportation hasn't changed. They just have to kind of add it because certain things now have that. Also, unarmed strikes and tremor sense haven't changed since the last UA. So, there we go. Like I said, wanting to get my ideas out about the new, UA. What is and isn't in there, things that I did like, things that I didn't like. But overall, I think, what is now available in there is pretty good. I like the way that 1D&D is going. I like the changes that they're doing, because I think it's just making the game better for everyone. But leading off with that, what I'm going to do now is something that I did as part of my discussion the last time that I put up a UA video. And that is that we're going to go through together, you and me streams, and we are going to add the new feats. Now, if you remember the last time that I did this, I added some of the new feats that were put in here under the tag of OD&D, 1D&D. Alert, Healer, Lucky, Savage Attacker, Skilled, and Tavern Brawler. Now, these were all part of the last UA, the Character Origins. And with these, they were all first level. So these are all skills that I personally thought were better as part of, as part of the new one, with the alert feat, getting that initiative swap, you get a proficiency bonus to, you get to add your proficiency bonus to your initiative. So I liked this, and I want to do that with the new one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sit here, and we're going to add these. So I think what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to move my windows around, at least on my side. I'm going to move them around here. I know it's going to be so totally crazy. There we go. All right. Got them balanced out because I honestly work on my right-hand side. But we're going to get a jump into these. Now, as we discussed the last time that we did this video, the ability score increase, we're not even going to touch that. That is not a thing. That's just a natural thing that's tied into Beyond. But what we're going to do is all the ones that I liked from the new UA, we're going to add those. And I still have a list on my side. But the nice thing is that we'll be able to create these, you know, from the old ones. And we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to make sure that we label them OD and D. And this is taking a minute to load. I don't know why. There we go. All right. And so what we'll do is we'll copy this and we'll paste this. All right. So ability score increase, impersonation, and mimicry. Now, one thing that I will actually say that I like about the new layout of the feats, and I kind of noticed this with the other one as well, with this one, it's no longer how feats used to be listed. So for example, this one that we're on, the actor feat, it's no longer just like 3 different groupings of abilities now, that are just, you know, hey, here's 1, 2, and 3. They now actually have full names. They have ideas that, you know, that explain what it is more. So an increase to your charisma score, that's obviously an ASI, but advantage on charisma deception and charisma performance to pass yourself off. Well, that's impersonation, so that makes sense. And you can mimic another creature, mimicry. I like the idea of being able to look at this and say, okay, what are the 3 things I'm getting? ASI, impersonation, mimicry. Cool. So again, that's just one of those tiny things. I think it's more of like a, you know, a clean way of doing it. You can just very quickly make this a bulleted list. It's clear to see what your 3 things are, and then it goes into detail of what they are. So I like that that was changed. Okay, so actor, OD&D. Prerequisites. Prerequisites have changed. Pretty much everything now requires a prerequisite. I actually need to see something. So this is something that whenever you are making stuff on D&D, kind of on Beyond, you have to see how certain things work. Defensive Duelist, for example, is a feat that has a prerequisite. So I can see under here, if I go into edit this, it is, the description is just going to be what it specifically is. So, charisma, 13 plus. Now, you know, and I could technically change it to this, you know, dexterity 13 or higher, and, you know, I think that's just as fine. Come on. Okay, well, actor. There we go. So the prerequisite type, as we can see down here, it's ability score, dexterity 13. So this needs to be ability score, this needs to be charisma, and this needs to be 13. Gonna hit save. Yep, looks exactly the same. Perfect. So now when we hit save, Man, I think it's because I'm jumping over to the other one. Cool. All right, there we go. We got the prerequisite in, so that's good. Modifiers, this is going to be a bonus to your charisma. Yep, that's good. And then beyond that, we actually don't need to put anything. There's not an action granted by this. There's not, a spell or anything like that, and it's not something you have to make a choice of. So, there you go. We got actor already in there. Perfect. Okay, gonna go on to athlete now. Oh, window on the screen. All right, cool. There we go. So, 4th level. You know what? Actually, I just had this thought. I'm going to type that in. We're going to grab actor here. And we're going to go in. We're going to add a prerequisite. And this is going to be level 4. This is going to be character level 4. This is only available to level 4 characters. God. But anyway, I know it's going to work. Go. Let's take a look. There we go. Charisma 13 or higher and level 4. I'm not going to lie. I actually really like that certain feats are now tied to being level 4. And the reason why I like that is because I think that it gives some credence to stuff being first level feats. One of the things that I tried doing at one point, I have a document set up for it, is I wanted to have background feats. So, here it is. So right here, as you can see, I had this whole thing set up where it was a bunch of background feats. Let's switch that back over to dark mode because it's a little bit easier on my eyes. So as you can see, I had this whole thing set up. I had all of these feats based on what background you picked. Now, as you can tell, some of them only have a few, whereas others have a ton. With a lot of them having 20 or more. And a lot of them also having the exact same thing, where I had to combine certain things. Now, I did this as my own house thing because I always wanted to give my players a talent or feat at first level. And these are ones that I could argue would be tied into your background. Now, obviously, I knew D&D was going to be doing their own thing eventually. They had already started doing some of that stuff when it came to a bunch of new UAs that they had introduced, where at first level you might have had the Rune Carver feat, or you might have had the Magic Initiate feat and stuff like that. And I think that stuff is good, but I just felt like it hadn't addressed everything just yet. So I'm actually really glad that they're now differentiating between 1st and 4th level feats, because as much as I am a min-maxer and I love theory crafting with characters, having the ability to say, hey, you can't have this just yet at 1st level, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, is good. I think feats should exemplify some kind of, in-field training. And, when you start out at 1st level, that's oftentimes things that are going to be very basic and not that crazy. But I think another big reason why I like having these at 4th level is because all of them, except I think for one, give out an ability score increase, which I like. I like that is going to be one of the options now. So, okay, so this is going to be athlete, OD&D, save. All right. You have undergone extensive physical training. We are actually going to do snippets to gain some benefits. Cool. Give that a quick save. All right. So what are we looking at first? We're looking at modifiers. So this is going to be strength, dexterity, or charisma of 13 or higher. Prerequisite ability score. So it looks like we're probably going to have to do 3 separate ones. Strength, dexterity. Yep. And constitution. So there we go. I wish it wouldn't do that every time. Nope. All right, so we're probably going to have to do the prerequisites last. That's probably what we'll have to do. Woo. Which we only just have to add the 4th level one. So, dexterity, these are going to probably be a bear. Because some of these don't include all 3. I think they have gotten better at it. Like this one, strength, con, or dexterity. I don't think all of them have that, but I think some of them now do. All right, so modifiers. So with this one, we need to get a speed. We need to do, I think, set, if I'm not mistaken. Climbing speed. This is going to be, I think it's just, no, I think we just need to click climbing speed. And that should automatically just say, hey, you have a climbing speed. You have advantage on any ability check you make for the jump action, which that's not a thing. So, but we can do advantage ability checks, and this is going to be jump action. So there we go. Athlete, we'll give that a quick save. We'll add the prerequisite of level 4, which is that your level has to be 4. And it breaks every time, but that's fine because we know that it's going to work. There it is. Athlete. Perfect. Cool. So yeah, it's just kind of going to be a pain in the butt. All right. Charger. Go. Let's get this one. So, Charger definitely changed. Yes. D&D. Now, this one's prerequisite is going to be a bit different because I actually don't know if that's a thing that you innately have in here. Is proficiency with martial weapons as a prerequisite, but we'll see. I know I can do custom. That is going to be a thing that I probably have to do. All right, so bullet these, bold on these. Come on, get it right. Cool. Give that a quick save. So, modifiers. This is going to be bonus, and this is going to be was it strength or dexterity, and there's going to be a fixed value of 1. Cool. When you take the dash action, your speed increases by 10 feet for that action. That's not something we have to add. But charger action is going to change. So, when you use the dash action, you can use a bonus action. Yeah, this is definitely changed. So, if you move at least 10 feet in a straight line immediately before hitting with an attack as part of the attack action, choose one of the following benefits. So we're going to list this. Gain 1d10 bonus to attack rolls. Push the target up to 10 feet, provided the target you push is no more. Yeah, so. Cool. These are going to be bulleted. And this is going to be changed to when you use... if you move at least 10 feet for bonus action. So, how are we going to do this? If you move at least 10 feet before using... If you move before attacking... You either gain a 1d8 bonus to the roll, or push, provide if, yeah. There you go. Cool. Easy enough. All right. So now I need to do the 2 prerequisites. Actually, I wonder. Okay, well, the first one is going to be 4th level, which we already know how to do that one. It's easy enough. We're going to do save. And save. Now, I go back to here. Cool, we got a prerequisite. Nice. We're going to add another one. But this one is proficiency with any martial weapon. I'm just going to save this over on another document that I have open so that I can keep... So I know that that's going to be a big one. That's one that doesn't often change. All right, so this is proficiency. Yeah, see, armor. But we're going to do custom value. No. Huh. Shoot. We have to choose one of these. That's not it. I wonder. Yeah, see, I can't save it like that. Huh. But I can save it. So I wonder if I do it this way, now that I have it right, now the modifiers are right and that's right, can I go into here? Oh, cool. 4th level, proficiency with any martial weapon. Well, there we go. That totally works. All right. Let's create another one. Next one up, crossbow expert. This one got crazy. All right. So, ability score increase as always. Ignore loading as always. Firing and melee was the new big change. And dual wielding. Right. He's bulleted. Cool. All right, so modifiers. Bonus. Nope. Don't want to hit enter like that. Ability score. Nope. This is going to be, or ability checks. No, we want dexterity. I don't want dexterity score. There we go. So +1. Yep. Action, I think. Yeah, no, we don't. Because the crossbow expert attack has changed. Yeah, because that's the one that gives you that bonus action attack. You can now just use that as part of the light property. So we can go ahead and delete that. Or actually, no, you know what? We'll do it this way. When you use the attack action, attack with... no, so what we'll do is... I don't like how that goes into there. Huh. That's weird that breaks into the snippets. So I do a lot of my editing before I do these streams, but this one I didn't. Actually, figured it wouldn't be this bad. But we'll live. Alright, when you take the extra attack action of the light weapon property, you can add your ability modifier to the damage if, yep. So, you're still getting that extra attack, you're just getting that bonus of it being that you get that ability modifier bonus to it. So it's basically the same thing as two-weapon fighting, in a sense. Alright, so save that. We're going to go back into prerequisites. Actually, we're going to do it this way. Because I know this works. So level 4. Save. Huh. You know what? I could just do this, couldn't I? Could I do that? Which one was that? It was crossbow expert. Oh, shit. Look at that. I can just... Okay, cool. Alright. So that's probably what I'll end up doing is just going to delete this other prerequisite. Just going to go into here. Perfect. Because obviously it's still going to break. Yeah, that's fine. All right, cool. We'll just kind of, hit it there from there on out. Okay, defensive duelist. Here's our copy of it, actually. So we can just go back into creations. Type in copy. Not Koipi. Defensive duelist. Edit that. Cool. Let's do this one. For holding a finesse weapon and another creature hits you with a melee attack, you can use the reaction to add your proficiency bonus to your armor class, which actually I think is, I think that's actually the exact same thing as it was before. Yeah, it is. You just now get that extra to, your whatchamacallit. What am I thinking of? Just get a bonus to dexterity. That's all. So we're gonna 4, save, reload. Nice. This is still the same thing. I'm not even going to change that, but we're just going to get that modifier of... Keep clicking that instead of shift, or instead of tab. So we're going to type in score. Dexterity score. 1. Good. All right. I will be right back. I'm just going to take a quick 5-minute break. So hang out, listen to some music, and I'll be right back. All right, what's going on, everyone? Back. Thanks for hanging out during the break. We're going to get back into this. Adding some feats to D&D Beyond for the new UA. So, go ahead and keep moving on to the next one. Just going to be hanging out, just chilling out here. Bewilder. Alright, so modifier to this one. The big change was the old one was a +1 AC. Ignoring that, yeah. So how was this handled? Because this is not the case anymore. So, first things first. Yeah, dual wield armor class is now gone. So we're going to have bonus, and this is either going to be strength or dexterity. And treat non-light weapon as light, if not two-handed and wielding light in main hand. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's... I'm just going to leave that pretty much the way that it is, because it is pretty much the same thing. So... Yep, I think that's good. Cool. Add a prerequisite. This is going to be level 4. And proficiency with any martial weapon. And then we're just going to leave that at that. Cool. Alright, durable. Defy death. Speed of recovery. Nope. Ah! Oh my god, pressing the wrong keys. Yeah, this one was a big change from, you know, having a minimum, you know, a high minimum on your hit die to getting advantage on death saves. That's pretty crazy. I'll got some bonus. Oh, there he is. What are you getting into? What's the matter? Oh, I see what happened. He knocked something over. Yeah, we're gonna actually add this as a bonus action down here. This is gonna be general speedy recovery. Its activation type is a bonus action, and you can expend 1 hit die and regain of hit points equal to the roll. Easy enough. Save that. Give this a quick save. Prereq. Level 4 and Constitution of 13 or higher. Is that how we were doing it? Actually, I'm going to change this. I'm going to edit that one. I'm going to edit, not the alert. Actually, I'm probably going to edit all of these to add in that prerequisite of like first level and stuff, or maybe not, but I do at least want to change these. Actually, from Charger, we were good. Defensive Duelist, no, this one we're going to change. So, all right. Because I want the level requirement to be first, and then I want the character, like what it is. Ability score, con, and it's 13. I don't know why I wrote 12. Oh, maybe that was the old one. Maybe the other one was that. Sick. Okay. So this one, I'm going to delete that. We're going to go in and edit this one. And then ability score, save. Oop. Save. Level 4. Perfect. So that one I did the same way. This one, no, this one needs changed. Constitution 13 or higher. Okay, good. All right, now at least we have a template, so we'll just roll with that. All right, on to Elemental Adept, which actually I don't think I'm gonna do, and I think you can see why. I think with Elemental Adept, the only thing that I'd ever do once I start introducing these, if somebody ever wanted to take that, I would just tell them, like, go into your character sheet and just up your intelligence by 1, or your wisdom or charisma, whatever you're using, because it's the exact same thing, and that's just a pain in the butt to have to make so many of them. I'm not doing any of the epic boons. Those will come in time. I've never had other than one campaign I played in where anybody got to 20th level, and it was the end of the campaign. Also, fighting styles being feats are just weird to me still. That's a weird thing. I guess it's whatever. Yeah. So, punch and grab. Well, that has changed a little bit. We're going to delete that. So first things first, modifiers. It's going to be a bonus. And it's... Oh my god. Strength or dexterity. Bonus of win. What else we got? You have advantage on attack rolls against creature that is grappled. So, modifier. Advantage. I actually don't know if attack... I think we'll just have to hold that back a bit. I feel like I should do snippets. Oh no. Level 4. Strength or dexterity. Oh shoot. I didn't add character level. Alright. Great Weapon Master. Let's see how many more we had. Okay, so modifiers, bonus, score 1. Lofi is more audible now. Yeah, I do have it. I do have it up. I'm also using a different service. Also, as you can see, it shows up on the stream now because I'm back using Pretzel Rocks. it's all free and everything. And there were some songs that I was pulling in from Kenku on the Lo-Fi that it was clipping them on YouTube. Not that I'm monetized or anything, but it's just one of those things that I don't want to have to deal with. So. Alright, immediately after you score. Is this the same thing? No. Yeah, no, we're changing this. Delete. Yeah, no, it's because it's not a bonus action. It's just part of the attack action, so we're going to delete that. So yeah, it's just a thing. Prerequisites. Level 4. Proficiency with any martial weapon. Alright. Heavily armored. Actually the same thing, except literally the only thing that changes is you now get to choose between Constitution and Strength. Yep, that's right. So we want this level 4 as well. You know what? I just realized that. I was like, wait, did I add that to there when I did that? And I didn't. Oh well. Cool. Alright, Heavy Armor Master. Just gonna edit this because this is Constitution as well. hit with an attack, any bludgeoning. Yep. So it's basically the same thing. Before it used to be it was reduced by 3. Now it's your proficiency, which isn't a thing that's listed anywhere, so you just have to kind of remember it. This is obviously this is actually one that I don't know if it'll give me the choice. Because it's wisdom and charisma. Yeah. So we're going to have to do that, and then it's going to have to be... I think if I just leave it at that, and we're going to have to do wisdom or charisma. I think I have to put one there. We'll see. We'll play with this one later. We're going to rename this. Activation time. Yeah, see, this is actually a big change from the old one. So, it still functions the same way. It's no longer. So I was hooking around for an NPC. I'm attempting to flesh out a bit more. Enforcer, run some ideas by me, man. If you got questions, I'm glad to hear them. Or if you just want to give me the idea, I love making characters. So let's hear it. End of a short rest. We're going to do short or long rest. Yourself within 60 feet. It's creatures gain 2d4, and then it is the proficiency bonus. I need to pull up a snippet code. Because I forget the snippet code for proficiency bonus. Temp HP. And we are going to change that time because it's actually not a thing anymore. It doesn't have an activation time. That's the thing. It's just at the end of a long rest or short rest, you give an inspiring performance. All right. So I put my players in this frontier town. The NPC I'm currently working on is an ancient silver dragon in disguise as a human who is a monster researcher. Okay. That's interesting. I actually had because of one of my players, in the campaign that I'm currently running, my pt.5 campaign, one of my characters was playing a character one of my players was playing a character named Vanadar, or sorry, Nylor, who was a star druid. He had an NPC in the game that he knew that was a silver dragon in disguise as well. So I have dealt with something like that. So this is going to be... Wisdom or Charisma 13 or higher. Though she lost her wings to a red dragon, that's really all I have besides she pays the party for a monster brought back alive. I'm using her as a group patron, but not sure how to do that new DM. Okay. So you're trying to use her as a group. Okay, so let me reread this. So put my players in Frontier Town, the NPC. If she lost her wings to a red dragon, that's really all I have besides. So, I think the first thing that you'd have to do is, make sure that she has a purpose. Make sure that she has... No, you're not distracting me, man. You're not distracting me. I got perfectly fine. Make sure that this character, whoever this silver dragon is, make sure that they have a purpose, that they have a want and a desire in need. For example, the one that I had, her name was Elia. She's actually tied into the Rise of Tiamat storyline. She's actually one of the representatives that takes place during the big meeting. She's, in representation of chromatic dragons. So one of the main things for her was that her purpose within that story was to act as a driving force to get the party tied in with that plot line. I could have gone about it many different ways, but I saw that since I already had that character developed in one of my characters' backstories, it was a perfect opportunity for me to use an existing character that was going to show up eventually, and just kind of front line her. So her goal with that was twofold. One, to get the players involved in the talks with the Cult of the Dragon because they needed to be stopped. But two, it was because she knew that the cult had to be stopped and that the other chromatic dragons were probably not going to be nearly as helpful. So with her character there, when the players got to the point of potentially needing extra backup, they would have been able to call on her. They would have been able to rely on her as a point of reference when trying to get other dragons involved, to get other, or not chromatic. I keep saying chromatic. She's a representative of metallic dragons. Sorry. But it would have been an option for her to be like the liaison there. Now, let me see here. Professor Kamari is her name. Was also thinking maybe she has some servants in other places, like a larger web, if that makes sense. It does. The BBG is complicated. Yeah. I think if you're going to use her as a patron to the group, as kind of this you know, this contact from which your party spreads out. What you really need to do is, like I said, give her a purpose, give her her own wants and drives, but give her the resources that the players in your group are going to want and need. One of the things about trying to develop a patron is that you want to have it as somebody where there is a balance. This patron needs to have something that your party wants, and your party is going to want to work for them to get access to those resources. Now, you say on here that she is a... let me see, where did you put that? She's a monster researcher. So, if your party is out here trying to, you know, research something, you know, trying to find out something about a monster, she might have that information, but needs the party to aid with that. The BBG I have going is a demon lord who recently killed the god of war and will come back in a year to claim the kingdom for its own. They are money hungry at the time. Okay, so your party has a year to build up some kind of resistance to this demon lord. Your silver dragon in disguise is going to have some knowledge of how to do this. But that knowledge is not going to come cheap. So what you need to do is you need to figure out how the silver dragon is going to play an antagonistic force with your big bad. That's going to then be an establishing point of why the silver dragon is willing to help in this cause, if you want to have them tie directly into that. If she has access to money and resources, but doesn't have manpower, that can explain why she's willing to contract out to an adventuring group. So, depending on what your players, you know, if your players are money hungry right now, I think most adventurers are, you need to make sure that your players' characters' drives are set in line with this. Figure out things that this professor can have, that Professor Kamari can have. Resources, like I said, money, maybe it's information. She's a monster researcher, so she probably has information maybe about the Demon Lord, maybe about his generals and his servants and those that are aligned with him. Maybe to say that she's a monster researcher, she could be a demonologist. So she has the players going out doing quests for her and coming back, and every time that they do, she gets a little bit of extra money. She gives them some money, and gives them a little bit of information, or gives them guidance towards somebody within her web, like you said, of somebody who's going to know this. You know, if the players are looking to maybe open a gate to another world to take the fight to this demon lord, well, they're going to need to get the level 8 spell Gate. So how do you get that? How do you acquire such knowledge? Maybe she knows somebody, and she's not just willing to give that information out just willy-nilly. So you need to figure out who that character would be, why they have that information, and start building up these options for them. Would she ever reveal herself to the party or no? And yeah, I was thinking money. Some people... Yeah, fellow colleagues on other monsters. Yeah. You know, one of them's a demonologist. One of them is an aberrationist. Somebody, you know, she could focus on... She might have a specialty in demons, or somebody that she knows does. Somebody could be specific on aberrations. Somebody on beasts. Somebody on oozes. The different creature types. Undead, constructs. She did catch them skimming off the top, but didn't mind believing that they could use it. Would she ever reveal herself to the party or no? I don't, I mean, I think that's depending on how close she gets to the party. Elia in the Phandalin 5 group, she revealed herself, but it was also tied into a character backstory who knew her secret. She also gave the party, a buff at one point, but I think having her reveal that would definitely put her at risk. Silver dragons have innate magics, and people would want to know, would seek her out probably for knowing that. So she'd probably keep it on the down low until she really trusted the party. So, like I said, I think your first step is to try and tie her in with the big bad. Give her a reason to oppose the big bad. Give her resources that are... I imagine she's been hurt in the past, lost her wings, so she probably is wary. She's probably untrusting of some. Dragon hunters are one of the things that dragons have to worry about. But definitely give her a tie into the big bad. Make sure that she has a want to go against them, and give her the resources that the players need. And again, it doesn't even necessarily have to be that she has those direct resources, but she knows the knowledge of where to get those resources. Again, that all ties into how you would want to, the path that you would want to drive your party. If you want it to be something where your players go into, say, the 9 hells to fight this demon lord, to take the fight to them, start building that up. Start bringing up the idea of planar travel. Bring up the idea of different connections to the world. Maybe people that she knows. And build it up slowly. You don't want to just, one day she says, hey, can you go out and, deal with these goblins, or deal with these orcs, or deal with these kobolds, and then suddenly she's like, hey, by the way, I know how to reach the 9 hells, and you guys are going to go fight these demons. It needs to be slowly built up. So, again, it just depends on what your end goal is. If the demon is coming back, it's going to have the demons start appearing more and more. Yeah, no, that's a good option. Have little, bits and pieces, but what you should do is make sure that the places where these demons are popping up have significance within the party. It's good to have random encounters, have more and more demons showing up. If your players know that this is a thing that's going on, they're going to expect it. But if your players are ignorant of the fact that this, is going to start leading up to it, have it just start being these little, excursions these demons are going on. Maybe they burn down a town, or they attack some people. These little feral imps that are running about, little lava mephits, or stuff, little demons and imps and fiends and stuff that can go in and cause some mayhem. And hey, your party has to go over here. There's a professor over there. There's a tinkerer over there that might, that might have some information for what you need. And they just got attacked. So can you guys go deal with this? I don't really have a stat block for the big bad. Wasn't sure what to do with this. I think I might have gone too epic with a first time big bad. I love mephits. Mephits are great. They also can create themselves, so you get this repeating threat as you play with mephits. Truthfully, when it comes to the stat block, I would just say check online, reference D&D Beyond. There's different resources you can check online, but look for a higher CR creature and look at the abilities they have and pick and choose from there. Since you're going with a demon, and it seems like he's, you said on there he was coming back to that he was going to be coming back in a year to claim the kingdom for himself. One of the ones that you could go with might be a fire giant. You know, fire giants are fairly higher level, depending on what time you want to have. His goal is to take the kingdom for his own and to kill more gods of the realm. Well, why don't we take a look on here? We'll check out the bestiary on this unnamed resource that I would refuse to speak the name of for reasons. We'll look at some higher level ones. You know, obviously it depends on what point you want your it depends on what point you want your characters to start fighting these. One of the main problems that occurs that some people run into is they end up picking a creature that is either too low level for what the players will be fighting at that point, or they pick something so high level and that it takes forever to get there. We're going to level 10. Okay, so the party is currently 5, and we're going to 10 for the moment, and then see if the party... Okay, so you have a... okay, so I'm just going to assume that you have at least 3 to 5 players in your group. So we'll scroll down here just a bit. 5 players. Okay, cool. Right, so if you have 5 players, you're going to want to look for around 12 to 15. You want to look around 12 to 15. A lot to manage. 5 players is a good bit. I mean, 5 players is my personal preference. Technically 4 is kind of off and on. Yeah. So I have, out of the 3 groups that I run for, I have 6 players in 2 of them, and I have 5 in another. So I'm very used to running for 5 players, and that at least is my comfort zone is 5. I think 4 is good because 4 is technically the standard for adventures and for groups. Because when you have 4, you can have like one of each of the classes. You can have a defender, a striker, a utility, and mobility. So each one of them has its benefits, but 4 is that like standard, but 5 is my sweet spot. So let's take a look at some of these. So we got Australith. Well, if we actually do want to stick with demon, we're gonna filter through. We're gonna get a demon in here. Where is it? Here we go. Tag demon. Your grenade. So I can't go to metal. Well, hopefully. Nabusu. This is actually one that I have looked into recently. They're terrifying. Marlith, the great armed one. Yeah, see, these are more grotesque. A Baylor would probably be a good option. We have a cleric, a barbarian, a bard, a rogue, and the druid is off and on. Gotcha. Okay, so... Well, I mean, I ran an adventure where Ziggit Moy was actually the big bad, was like one of the grander ones, but actually I used a representative of Ziggit Moy as the enemy in there. So Ziggit Moy is a great option. Here we go. We got Gratzt. Now Gratzt probably wouldn't be the worst. Again, what you really have to do, and it's kind of the thing that I was going to say before. You need to look through different stat blocks. Especially if you want to create a big bad that fits what you need to go through and look at a bunch of higher CR creatures. Look at their abilities. Look at their capabilities. Look at their ACs, their hit points, their attacks, their lair actions. Pick and choose. Make your own. Pull pieces from here and there. Currently, the campaign that I'm running for my group at the library, they're fighting a shadow cult. Now, the group that group, I looked into different things that could be pulled out. Shadow assassins, shadow demon is actually what I ended up pretty much rolling with, because you can take something like a shadow demon and then just crank them up. You can take whatever it is that you like about it, add it into what you need, and then just dump the rest. But being able to pull those bits and pieces and just create your own is going to be your best bet. Make something that works specifically for you. Recently came up with a Ravenloft kind of Halloween themed thing. I was going to tease one of the big bad lieutenants, a necromancer. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Like, that's a good idea. Run smaller adventures that have tie-ins with them. Sprinkle stuff in. Have demons showing up in the little adventures that you have, leading up to lieutenants and generals. Have them picking up. I'm afraid of tweaking monsters. Don't be afraid to kill a PC. Seriously. You can always improvise. You can always change things on the fly. If you make a monster who is too overpowered and you recognize that when you get into combat, tweak them right then and there. Drop some stuff. Lower their AC a bit. Make it so that if you make one who's really strong, make it so that when they come out the gate and they're starting to hammer onto the players and you're realizing you made this character too strong, have it be like, oh, he did these first 2-3 attacks, but now he seems drained. Now he seems like he's exhausted. He's not swinging as hard. He's not hitting as much. Reel it in. Same as if you make them too easy. If you notice that your enemies are getting trounced, crank them up a bit. Give them some extra hit points. There's no reason to say that they can't be carrying, potions with them. There's no reason to believe that they don't have magic items that could heal them, or make it so that when they drop to 0, they in fact drop to 1 unless radiant damage or fire damage is dealt to them, or some kind of buff or bonus that gives you those benefits for your monsters. It's an option, and it's a way to change things on the fly. You want to have that versatility whenever you're running your games, because you're never going to know. D&D CR system is the worst thing ever. Generally, when you look at a CR of a creature, you want to think to yourself, I need 4 characters of this level for this to be a reasonable fight. But when you start introducing the character's abilities, how many attacks they get, do they have companions? What magic items have you given them at this point? You can't really go by CR. You really have to start to think more of action economy, of abilities, of lair actions, throwing in things that change the battle as you go. Yeah, CR was basically designed where if you have a party of 4 characters, this is the level of the characters that they need to be for this to be for this to be a reasonable battle. So having that, having like a CR 4 creature, if you have a CR 5, let's say they're fighting a Tanaric, okay? That's a CR 5 creature. You need your characters to be 5th level for this not to just like one-shot them. And you can kind of see that. It has an AC of 14, it has 95 hit points. Most level 5 characters aren't going to have that many hit points. It has multi-attack, it's a +7 to hit, it's dealing out reasonable damage. It can use a bonus action to move, and it also has a reaction. So a 4-character group of level 5s, this is going to be a reasonable challenge. But even this, I would not put this up against my players just as it is. Because a big thing you have to consider is action economy. When you have 1 enemy and 4 heroes, or in your case 5, at the most times, these characters are going to wail on this one character 5 times before this character can at least get 1 or 2 attacks out. So 95 hit points, you only need to do 20 damage per character to get that down. A 5th level fighter is going to have at least 2 attacks, maybe more, depending on how they're built. Same with a ranger. A wizard's going to have access to level 3 spells. And so, you know, action economy is one of those things. With this character being a fiend, I'd probably give them some methods. I'd probably sprinkle in about like 4 or 5 methods to keep some of the party members distracted, have them, you know, constantly zipping around. Action economy is going to be your greatest offensive. What do I do if I accidentally give the PCs a bit too powerful items? Was making them champions of the gods against the demons. I have done this numerous times. I have given my players items that I don't think are that strong, and then they start using them in creative ways that I never considered. There's two ways to go about this, to address this. The first is that you're the DM. You have every tool to your resource. So if you give them too strong of items, put them up against stronger enemies. Start making fights. I've heard it's a new DM thing. It's not even a new DM thing. Even experienced DMs give players... They give players too powerful items. Also, you sometimes don't think that an item is too powerful until you use it. Or until your players start using it. I don't want to take it away as a reward. Yes, so here is the thing. That's your other option. You either need to add in stronger challenges, or you need to drop to your knees and go to your players and say, hey, look, I'm a new DM. I made a mistake. I gave you an item I shouldn't have. Let's work together on a way that we can change it. For example, if you gave your players, say, a flame tongue sword, and you didn't really take it into consideration when you gave it to them, that a flame tongue longsword is going to deal 1d8 plus 2d6 fire damage. And let's say that this character, maybe a paladin who is worshipping, or who has an oath of renewal or something like that, who's out there to burn the world a new one, you didn't realize it was going to be this strong. You gave it to him real early, and he's using it with his smite abilities, and he's one-shotting everything you give him. You go to him and you say, hey, I gave you something I shouldn't have, and I don't want to take it away, but can we look at it and see if we can adjust it to make it more reasonable for the level that you're playing at, and so that I'm not having to throw an unreasonable challenge against the party in order to challenge you. And so you reduce, say, the damage to 1d6 instead of 2d6. And if that doesn't work, yeah, then just crank up the difficulty a bit. Throw some extra monsters at them. Throw a stronger monster at them. And, you know, run with it. That's always been my option. I like giving my players magic items and seeing what they do with them, because I want to see them think creatively with their items. You know, I want to see how they do stuff. And sometimes it's not even giving them a magic item. Sometimes you just give them an item, and these players think of crazy things. In one of my recent Phandalin 5 games, I gave my players a bunch of trinkets. And one of the items was a small jar that had some flesh in it and an eyeball. And it smelled terrible, and the rogue took this, and he melted a candle into it, mixed it up, and then dipped his crossbow bolts into it. And I gave him necrotic damage on his crossbow bolts because of this. Because that was not how it was meant to be used. It was a trinket. It had no magical effects, but he found a creative use. The barbarian in my group, he has an ability where he's a warforged, and he's a volcano barbarian. And if he drinks strong ale, he can belch out essentially the equivalent of burning hands. Well, he got a pipe that blows bubbles. So it was kind of joked about. It's like, well, he could just spew out this, this volatile stream of fire. So he changed it from the 15-foot cone to a 30-foot line, instantly giving him something that is just versatility. I did mention when handing them out that the effects may be subject to change. We can work on the effects and make it how you like, as long as it stays in the god theme. Yeah, that's fine. Like I said, just having that open conversation is definitely what you need. You don't want to, you generally don't want to just take stuff away, but you want to have that conversation and just explain to them, say, hey, listen, I'm new to this and we're going to stumble through it together. I found rust monsters the other day and I thought they were neat. I like giving them strong stuff, as some things never get used as much as other spells or items, if that makes sense. It does. I am generally one to give my players more than less. I want to see my players, get these crazy items and, have these crazy ideas that they want to roll with. Because to me, that's the fun thing. That's the interesting part about it all, is I want to watch my players succeed. I want to watch my players, do crazy things. So giving them magic items is my preference, at least, because it allows me to, it allows me to watch them do insane things. One of the things that you can do is, I really want to give them the deck. So I will give you a piece of advice that a good friend of mine gave me regarding the deck of many. Only when you are ready and willing, I don't want to screw them over. No. So only introduce the deck of many when you are willing for your campaign to end. The reason I say that is because of the effects of some of the cards in the deck of many. Specifically, where is it? Not Ruin. Here it is. So the Void, your character is just gone, so you're going to screw over one player. No, here it is. Moon. You're granted the ability to cast the Wish spell 1d3 times. The fact that there is a card in there that just lets you get access to at least one wish spell is so powerful that you could introduce that. And let's just say in your campaign, for example, you have this demon lord that has just is going to be coming back in a year. So one of your players draws the moon card and they say, I wish that demon lord was dead. Okay. So that demon lord is now dead. They just beat your big bad. The campaign is over. 1 year is not going to come by and he is going to get there. If they even think further along, they could say, I wish for that demon lord to not want to invade any world. And with that one, it can just be that demon lord is just never going to invade again. You could say, I wish for time to stop so that 1 year can never come. That's one of those things that you have to take into consideration that could happen. 2.5 years ago, when I started running my Phandalin 5 campaign, I too had that same thought of, I want to throw in the deck of many just to see what happens. And I had my characters draw. and they drew one card, and that was the gem card. They got 25 pieces of jewelry worth 2,000 gold each. That has persisted through the 2.5 years. A month and a half later in the game, or month in the game almost, they still have a number of these. They are not want for cash. They are not want for gold. If they really need to get any kind of large sums of money, they can go up to Neverwinter and try and sell some of these gems and make some of this gold back. And that takes away the value of the money that, say, I put into a dungeon. Oh, you find 50 gold in a chest. Well, that's cool. But, I have these gemstones that are strong, that are more valuable. So, I don't recommend adding, the Deck of Many unless you're willing and ready for your campaign to end. We so rich. Yeah, that's it. You know, and that's kind of the thing. You get, you know, when you have something like that, you don't have a ton of things that you can spend that kind of money on. Other than ending the game, why have the deck in the first place? Well, the deck is there because it's there to add that chaos. You can also, you know, pick and choose what cards you would want to have in it. Now, usually it is found to have only 13 cards. So nothing says that you can't pick and choose what 13 cards those are. You go through and you say, okay, I don't want, I want the sun, but I don't want the moon. I don't want them to get access to Wish. I want Star, but I don't want to give them the Fates. You know, I want them to have access to Night, but I also don't want them to have the Void or the Skull or anything like that. So you could pick and choose what you want to just give them benefits. I just think it's the things that come with this are just too strong to just throw willy-nilly into a campaign. You have to be very specific about how you play it. And you have to be ready and willing to face the consequences of that item as a DM. And that's where it kind of plays into that thing of you gave your characters an item that you probably shouldn't have. And because of that, you now have to face the consequences. You know, again, I did it myself. I don't regret my decisions with giving my players the Deck of Many, but it could have gone wrong is all I'm saying. I found there's a neat section in Tasha's on elemental hazards that was cool. There's even fast travel points in Magic Fruit. Yeah. It's so many things that are available in Tasha's. It's one of the it's one of the better books. Yeah, hold off on the deck until you have spent more time with the idea of how you might want to introduce it. Also, go online and find your own Deck of Many. There are people who have made other cards that do other crazy things. Yeah, environmental hazards. These are great for if you just want to have things that happen to your players as they're traveling, when they go through regions. I'm not going to say that some of these aren't going to show up when my players in some of my games get to certain places, but there's all kinds of stuff in Tasha's. It's one of the best resources that has come up in many years. It's one of the better books. So yeah, it's environmental hazards. Those are one of those things that what you should do is, at least the way that I have actually done it in one of my adventures, try and build up to something like that. There was one where I was going to have bullets, which, So bullets have a really cool ability, which is petrification. So, or no, I'm thinking of something else. But no, bullets have this awesome thing where they can launch up out of the ground because they have a burrow speed. So I started to have it where when my players were moving through an area, they started feeling the ground rumbling under their feet. Like every so many minutes, they would feel this like tremor underground. And at one point, a player fell into a pit just out in the road. And they saw that it extended down one way and the other, kind of like in Stranger Things when they go into those underground tunnels. They were like, what the hell is making this? So they're continuing on. Suddenly, bullets jump out of the ground, start attacking them. Kind of want to introduce fast travel, but not 100% sure how that or airships work. Actually, not sure what by fast travel, unless you just mean travel in itself. But if you're talking about magical transportation, transportation, something like that is where you have to contend with building that into the world. For example, in a lot of my campaigns, I have it where, some of the bigger cities have teleportation circles. You might have one in Neverwinter, Waterdeep, Luskin, and it costs money. I mentioned a gate section in Tasha. Let's take a look. Well, gate's a spell, but we'll probably find it if we search. Yeah, there we go. Um, yeah, like I said, you have these, you have these things set up, and you can do teleportation circles, pretty much the same way, where if you have them set up in certain places, you can access the space in between them. You can travel between these two places. It depends on if you would want to do something like that. Now, one of the things that I have introduced in my campaigns time and time again is the idea of the Bank of Holding, BANK of Holding, where it is a bank that is magically run. It's run by wizards, and the way that it works is they take essentially the same magic as the Bag of Holding, and they make bank vaults out of this. So when you go to the bank, you buy a vault that has a planar dimension. It has its own demi-plane, and then you're given a Bag of Holding. And that Bag of Holding, unlike a normal bag, which goes to its own plane of existence, its own demi-plane, this Bag of Holding connects to your vault. So you could put something in your Bag of Holding, and it's now safe at the vault. And the thing is that the Bag of Holding, unlike other ones, is that if it's destroyed, the contents, or it's flipped upside down, the contents aren't spewed into the world. You have to purposefully pull stuff out. You have to know what you're pulling out as a caveat to that. So this way, if somebody gets their hands on it, it's not just, oh, let's see what you have. You have to know, like, hey, I'm taking out this longsword, or I'm taking out this crossbow, or I'm taking out a dragon egg. And when you have it set up like this, the sky's the limits, because there's also the ability to have multiple bags connecting to the same one, but it costs. It's 1,000 gold to get a vault. It's an extra 500 gold for every bag. And then from there, it's a monthly cost. You have a reoccurring cost. I think whenever I last set it up, it was 50 gold a month that you had to pay. So it's a means by which players can have access to a bank that they're not necessarily carrying with them, but they have access to when they need it. But it's expensive. It's not, something that every person's going to be able to have access to. I love the unraveling magic part, and can I borrow the bank idea? Yeah, Yeah, no, please be my guest. Well, and if it seems expensive, change it to meet your setting. Um, One of the ways that I was going to run it is having those little bags hanging at adventuring depots in a world. You go up to a job board. There's flyers and stuff there. So you want to do a job and you need to get some more information. So you tear it down. You have a group stamp. Every adventuring group has to have a name. You have to be registered. You have a stamp. You stamp it on there. You put it into this, into the bag. That gets sent over to a processing company who handles all these, quest requests. And then they send you the information you need for it. It was a way to have an adventuring guild spread throughout so that, hey, you're in a small town and how do you get paid? Well, it's not going to be the farmer because the farmer already paid this adventuring guild. The way I set the world is the world itself is highly magical, though. And the people... Wait, what? The way I set the world is the world itself is highly magical, though the people, it's rare. Okay, so the world itself, so it's a high magic world, but the people itself don't have magic to it, is what you're saying. The players, town made. Okay, so yeah, so the world has high magics, but magic is rare in people. I get that. Yeah, okay. That's understandable. I mean, that's, you can have limitations like that set up because it's good to have those limitations. But you want to make sure that your players aren't really skewing that. Let me scroll back up here where you said a cleric, a barbarian, a bard, and a rogue, and a druid. So right then and there, you have 3 full casters. So one of the things that you should play into this world is when your party shows up somewhere, or if your party travels, everybody's going to want to talk to them. If magic is rare in your world that people have, if it's rare that people have magic, your cleric, who is going to probably be a healer, your druid, who's going to be... or your bard, who's probably going to have some healing magics, and your druid, who's going to have some utility, these people are going to be requested for odd jobs. Hey, my son is sick. Hey, I need help, with my field. It's dying. People are going to be going to them for very small tasks on their mind, but in these peasants, in these commoners' minds, they're going to be sought after. I set up a world one time that was very similar. The world had innate magics, but the people in it was very hard for them to access. It took years of training and practice. And in that adventure that I ran, I limited it to you could only be, if you were a wizard, let me rephrase this. If you were a caster, you had to be of a certain age because it took you that many years to get those abilities. The only one that was different was sorcerers, and that was only one in like a million was somebody born with sorceress powers. So this short adventure that I ran, the one character who played a sorcerer was like hunted down because he had magic blood. People wanted to dissect him. People wanted to experiment on him. They wanted his blood because he had magic in his system. Unlike the wizard of the group, who had to spend almost 40 years studying, the cleric, who was an old general, who just wanted to, or who had this magic only recently appear. This kid who was a sorcerer was like 20 years old, but was hunted down his entire life because he had innate magics. They've been kind of sticking to the starting town. I've given them stuff to do, but yeah, they currently want to build a tavern to hide the queen, as she was almost assassinated and saved the party when demons announced themselves. Yeah. So they need money, so they need to build a tavern. So have the professor, have that silver dragon, giving them small quests to do. Give them, things that are reasonable for them to take them out in adventure, to let them explore the world, make connections with people out there, well thought through NPCs, and get them to give them small side quests as well, and let your players more or less figure out which way they want the campaign to go. They already have a time frame. You already set up the guidelines. You set the goalposts. Now your players are just working their way to that, and it just depends on which path they want to go. If they want to build a tavern, you need to sit down and figure out how much time it's going to take to do that, how much money it's going to need, what resources are they going to be the ones building it? Are they going to hire people? Of the people that are going, if they do hire people, who is available in the area to help build this? And, give them this information, make sure that it's clearly understood and it's agreed upon. And then when you go out, have it be that these demon incursions are happening. Have your silver dragonborn, not dragonborn, but have your silver dragon out scouting the area. She's a monster researcher. I'm sure she's out and about doing her own thing. I mean, she can shape change, she can transform. Maybe she's out there and she, finds out that this town recently got attacked by these hell demons that ran out into a forest. So your players go, they talk to some folks there, they get some descriptions, and then they go to hunt them down. Maybe when they find them, they find this hell pit that they're in, or they find a conjuration circle, and there's stuff laid around. Maybe there's a cult that wants this demon to come. Maybe this cult is out there doing things, trying to recruit people, assassinating people to make sacrifices to bring forth these little minions. Truth be told, since you have demons, since you have gods, cults are going to be your best bet. They're smart, they're crafty, they can blend in with everyone, and cults are honestly one of the easier things to work with, because they can be anyone. Anyone can be a part of this, demon cult if you want. They want to hire people, though. It's such a new town, not many. Yeah, so if they want to hire people, they need to go to other towns. If they're trying to build up this frontier town, give them access to other locations around, give them access to other locations within the area. And have it be something where the players have the ability to go to these other towns, to these other cities, and do work there and convince people to come in. Maybe there's a town nearby that's on the edge of a forest, and maybe there's skilled laborers there, people who are good at cutting down wood, people that are good at building, carpenters. Maybe that's their main thing. So you go there. Again, have a cult. Maybe have some demons show up. Your party arrives just in time to save the day. Everyone's thankful for that. And then your party's like, hey, look, we're trying to build, frontier town down here. Can we work out something? Can we set up a trade route to bring some lumber down there? Because we need to build some things. Have your players go to a dwarven fortress or a dwarven settlement where they're mining. Have access to the metals and the resources there. If this is anywhere near a coast, you're gonna get benefit from shipping and stuff. So have your players go there. Maybe that place is getting attacked by sea elves, or they're getting attacked by, fish folk and merfolk, and your players go in and help that. Or maybe there's no more fish, and your players have to go out on a ship and find out why there's no fish in the area. Maybe there's some giant sea monster out there. I want the big bad to kill the rest of the gods, but that's me. That's actually not hard to do. Funny enough, That's actually not that hard to do. You have a cleric and a druid in your party. You have at least one religious caster in your party. Have it be eventually as this big bad starts killing gods, have churches start crumbling. Have clerics out there start losing their powers and abilities. Have these magically inclined mages start to falter because suddenly their god's dead. Their god is not answering their calls anymore. Chaos starts ensuing. Obviously, you don't want to go as hard as it's, Mistra and you're going to redo the spell plague or anything like that, but have it be smaller gods, small pantheons, or small portfolios. This god of law and death, he was what's his name, not Helm or Tyr, it's Ilmater. Ilmater suddenly killed. Well, now the undead is unleashed, and you can now have the undead rising from the ground, and grave sites are now starting to become, these hotspots of undead activity. Have the god of the winds and the seas be killed, and now there's these massive storms out in the out in the open sea. Maybe that's why that shore town, that town along the coast, is now hurting. Okay, harvest and fertility. Farmers in mass start freaking out because their crops are dying. Okay? Suddenly at hospitals, at, clerical outposts, pregnant women's, and you can get dark on this, pregnant women suddenly start losing their kids. And you have churches of Shantea, who's a harvest and fertility god, suddenly start, all their clerics are now, are now confused, and it's chaos for them, and they don't know what's going on, but suddenly everything just goes to hell for them. And, now you have to... cockatrice. I do have this town in mind where they are stone masters, but they all have a companion, cockatrice, and when they reach the end of their lives, ooh, that's cool. That's a cool idea. So have it be your town needs stonemasons. It's going to be, it's going to be something that, if your players need that, that's a cool idea, but have it be something where they have to, you have to deal with the cockatrice's gaze, because if they see you, they can petrify you. How would the party fix that? Well, how would you fix reviving a god? That's a hardy question. And maybe it's something that, your players have to build up to. Maybe there's some ritual they have to perform. Maybe they have to get access to the wish spell somehow, if that's an option. You could also have it be less as crazy, and have it be, something where the gods weren't killed, but were imprisoned. So now their effects are not being felt in the world because their magic has been cut off. So maybe the gods aren't dead, but how do you break those chains? How do you break them out and free the gods? Well, that's something that you would have to sit and ponder on. Would it be, again, a ritual? Would it be some kind of magic? Would it be that your players have to travel to the realm of this demon who has captured them and literally break them out? They go to into the nine hells. They go to, the level of the fifth, Levistus, the frozen plains. Harvest and fertility is kind of the opposite of ice and frozen and, all of that. I mean, that's kind of the idea of Icewind Dale. You have frozen beauty, and you have, all the people dying and the crops failing and things are waning. So have Shantaea, the goddess of fertility and harvest, be trapped in Levistus. And so your players find this out somehow. And, you know, how they might come across this, well, maybe it's written in a... maybe it's written in gospel. Maybe it's written in a prophecy. Maybe there are cultists that they run into that know that this is going on. Maybe they pray for divine intervention. Maybe they reach out to a high-powered wizard who knows about these things and is able to divine this information. Have this knowledge be quest rewards, whatever your quests may be, and then... And honestly, I would really stick with one god to maybe go in. And honestly, fertility, that is going to be a good option to play with, because it's probably going to be your easiest one to manage. But have it be something where you can, have it be something where you can really, you know, send your players to another world to rescue them. Again, that would be a good option if you wanted to really play into this idea of a god killer, but they're not there yet. You know, they haven't killed these people just yet. The cleric is kind of a false cleric, as in she has a god as a, worship. So is she a warlock? Or is she a cleric? Or she has a god as a great old one, but outwardly... Oh, okay. So she's basically a warlock, but she poses as a cleric, is what I'm gathering from that. Yeah, you could also go after, you know, a life cleric. Okay. Yeah, like I said, have it play up if you want to have this god killer. Have that be one of your big options. And honestly, that's probably not a bad thing if you really want to do that. I understand. Is how I understand it. Yeah, I mean, I've had a chaotic cleric before. I've also had players who, you know, they're like posing as one thing and playing as the other. I always make sure that it's known amongst the players. But one of the things that you could do is, if they're a life cleric, you know, have it start playing into these crops are dying, you know, children or babies aren't being born. Have this start to affect your life cleric, you know, have them start to feel their powers wane a little bit. Maybe some of their spells aren't as effective at times, and it starts to worry them. Because that's going to build an urgency into them, something that they are going to need to address. I think that's going to be a good option, and maybe have that be one of the reasons why the big bad has captured or killed that god, is because maybe he knows that he's going to need, you know, minions when he comes and takes over this world, or this kingdom at least, but when he comes and takes into this world, he knows that he is going to need minions. So if he goes after the life goddess, you know, the fertility goddess, the harvest goddess, and the world starts to wane, have it be that, you know, he did this because he knows that when he shows up, he can start to revitalize the world in his own ways. It would be corruption, but it would still be crops. It would be food and water. Kids would start to be born, but they would be, you know, demonically infested. They would have certain traits now. But have it be his way of saying, like, hey, here's your two options. You can either continue to live under my command, or you can, you know, you can die. War is dead. How would you show that the god of war is dead? Well, See, that's a rough one. Let's look at Tyr, for example. So Tyr is a god of war. He's a god of lawful war, though. Again, I would kind of lean more on... I would lean more on the clerics of the world, the paladins of the world. You know, people who worship these gods, who get their powers from these gods. That's how I would showcase this. Have them suddenly start to lose their powers. Entire battalions of divine warriors, knights and paladins and clerics wiped out by, you know, corrupted forces. Have these demons show up at the gates of a divinely protected settlement, a barracks of Tyr or of Helm, and have these demons just wipe over them. That these clerics and paladins no longer have their divine magics, because that's going to be a very straightforward, easy way to say, hey, shit's fucked now. God of War, a God of War and Reverie. Yeah, I would still say that it's going to be your easiest way. If you really want to have stuff tied to gods, have it be that those that are directly affected by it are the first ones to notice. Because depending on how your world works, the gods might have more or less influence in anything. If you want to have a world where the divine have so much play into everything that, like, the gods literally show up in material form and influence the world by touching the ground, and, you know, fields are instantly, you know, fruit bearing. That's something, because obviously they're not going to show up. They're not going to answer prayers. But you can also have it in minor ways where, again, if you have the divinely inclined, they don't hear their answers. All these priests suddenly have headaches that they don't understand. They don't hear the call and the answer from their gods anymore. So, you know, maybe certain things don't have the same zeal as much. You know, you call forth out to these gods and you just don't get the same feeling anymore. There's different ways to handle it. Again, at least in my game, if I wanted to do that, I would lean more towards those directly affected by it. The clerics, the paladins, suddenly just losing access to certain abilities. If the gods actually be in the world, though, they don't get involved in people unless it's issues between themselves or if they have a mortal they like. Okay. So if that's how you have them, if they do exist, if they do interact with the world, you could have it be that, you could have it be where it's somebody, this god sends an avatar of themselves to this one location every single month or every so many weeks. And it's this giant festival that they have. Maybe it's like every 3 months that this goddess of fertility shows up to bless the lands with gift. Or maybe it's once a year and the festival of life is coming up and your players have been invited to go there. Maybe they did something to aid this town and the festival of life is coming up and they want to go there. Exactly like a tradition. And so everybody's celebrating. They have this wreath of flowers of these, this harvest that has been set up. And everything is now ready and the players are there. And, blessing the firstborns of the year. That's a great idea. There's all these kids there and they're, like everything's great. And then all of a sudden it's the time, it's the same hour every time, maybe you have it built in where it's, 8 o'clock or something like that. And nothing happens. And then minutes go by and everybody's confused. You see the folks of the town are, there's this look of confusion and almost onset terror. Everybody's questioning what's going on, and then you see the gifts, the bounty that has been set around where she would normally show up, start to wilt and to gray and to rot. You hear babies start to cry. A woman who is pregnant there, who was looking to be blessed by this god of life and fertility, all of a sudden starts screaming as, blood starts pouring from her. Yeah, there would be panic. There would be chaos. There would be all this confusion, and your players are now wrapped up in it. I would say maybe not the demon, maybe not like the demon, but in that moment, have the bounty of wealth and harvest that was set about for them, have the portal where maybe she shows up. Maybe there's like this stone in the ground that's a sun or a flower or something where she always appears. Have this swirl of dark magic suddenly appear. All the fruits and wheat and everything is pulled up into this cacophony, this tornado almost, and a face appears through it that laughs and mocks them, saying that their goddess has been captured, that the world will rot and fall to ruin at their feet, and in a year's time that he will come and claim this world for his own, that they will wither and falter should they not turn to him. And then have it from there, that whole tornado of this food explode out. Have the demonic imps and mephits go out, start terrorizing people, like not even necessarily like hurting them, but causing chaos, knocking stuff over, breaking windows, destroying structures and furniture, pushing people, scratching them, biting at them. Again, nothing that would necessarily kill anyone. And then have the cult of this demon lord show up and basically start to, wrangle the people back in, claiming, our Lord will be coming in 1 year's time. Should you wish to survive during this time, you will bend your knees now. You will drop to the ground and you will praise his name. Those of you that stand in defiance of us and our work will die. And have a bunch of people drop to their knees. Most people are going to be are going to have a more survival idea behind it all. And they're just going to want to not die. And then have that be the moment where your party stands up and says, fuck this, screw you guys, we're gonna murder you, or we're gonna stop you, we're gonna be this force of good. And have your players drive into them, take them down. I don't know why. Yeah, okay, cool. So Lord Kaiser. I mean, Kaiser does mean king. It is, the Lord. But, have this be Darth Rotundus. There you go. That's a hell of a name. Have it be this monumental moment where this cult comes out and they show themselves for the first time and they announce their plans and they're ready to show themselves. And this is that moment. And maybe it's not all of them. Maybe there's other celebrations going on in the world where this same thing is happening. And let your party be that beacon of light and that beacon of hope for these common folk. And that would be a way to really set it up. Have some small adventures that build up to this. Have them maybe visit the town where the festival is going to happen so that at least they have some connection there. Have them go back to the frontier town. Maybe this whole harvest place has more food and access to resources that allow their crops to grow well because they also have that benefit from the goddess. Have them help out something there. And then have them say hey, we're going to have this festival in 2 weeks. You should come back. You should enjoy yourselves. And then have the players go back, do their own thing. And then 2 weeks later, have them go up and have this encounter ready, and let that be really the carrying point of where your adventure starts. This celebration gone wrong and everybody is now in chaos and it's terror, and your players are there to represent good and to represent you know, the fight against this. And, you know, have some of the cult run away. That's always a key thing. That's one of the big things that you should do. Don't necessarily have the cultists all willing to fight to the death. Have them be ready to run, because they can run and get rebuild and, you know, get reinforcements. So, oh yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, I think what you have here is a really good structure. You have a big, grand idea, and my biggest recommendation, because I am going to be ending my stream here in a couple minutes, because I got to get ready for my first 15 show, which is going to be starting in about an hour or so. But what you should do, go online, go to Reddit, go to, you know, Google it, find online communities for small quests. Legit, I have there's books that you can buy for just small minor quests and build from those. You know what, give me 1 second. All right, there we go. So these are two books that oh god, it's hard to see. I'm gonna try and put it right there. So right there, and there's a green one as well. This is number 2. But these are the Book of Random Table Quests, and in here it's a D1000. It's 10 100 or D100 tables that you go through here, and you just roll something and build from that. A random page, town quest, pickpockets are working the marketplace, and the party is asked to help catch them. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, no, check online. These are on Amazon, or just go online and find random quest board. But these are by Matt Davids. They are the Book of Random Tables Quest 1 and 2. Just go into these books. Have options, you know, have small quests. A string of burglaries has the city's nobles on edge, and the party is asked to investigate. The owner of a shop is paying for rare herbs and ingredients. Several different varieties can be found in and around the countryside near the town. These are going to be the best kind of small adventures that in there you can plant seeds. That's at least what I do. I take small adventures like this and I plant seeds. I actually did one from this where it was the players are asked to deliver something to a place. And I had it, my players were asked to deliver a shipment of flour to a mill. When my players got there, they found that something just wasn't right. The mill workers weren't acting right. They eventually went back and found that they were being held captive by Red Dragon cultists. The Red Dragon cultists were making grenades out of flour bomb, or they were making bombs out of flour, because flour is explosive in certain orientations when it's aerosolized. So my players go there, they think something's wrong, they eventually go back, and it's chaos because they start fighting the cult. You can have things like that you can build up from these small one-sentence quests. So yeah, definitely take some time, look online. Again, Reddit is a great resource, but just Google it, like D&D adventures, D&D quests, you know, random D&D quest tables. It's always going to be a great option. But I think with that, that's where I'm going to end it for now. Like I said, I'm going to be back streaming here in about an hour or so. I'm going to be running my first 15, episode 7 tonight. So if anyone's, you know, out there that wants to watch that, you know, feel free to come back in about an hour whenever I start that up. But thanks for hanging out, everyone. You know, we only got through some of this, but honestly, I had so much more fun talking here with Enforcer about this adventure. So I'm always up for talking shop. So if you guys are ever around, feel free to swing by whenever I'm doing one of these, and we can definitely do some more of this. I'm going to post in here. Oh, it looks like actually looks like Stacy actually has it covered, but I'm going to post in here the link for... there it is. There is the Amazon link for the quests. It is the Book of Random Tables quest. It's a great book. There's 3 of them. In fact, I have 2 of them, and I do use them all the time. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful night. I will see you next time, and we'll chat next.